Hello and welcome back to the Awakening Philosophy Podcast. My name is Jed and we are exploring the ox-herding pictures. Last time we reflected on all of the different systems that we have been exploring in this world that we inhabit. And how, of course, we make sense of them, because we seem to live in an intelligible reality, a reality we can apprehend ourselves directly. In fact, that's kind of what philosophy is. Figuring out what are our tools for apprehending and participating most fully and most beneficially in the intelligibility that we find in reality. Now, as we awaken different capacities or abilities to apprehend the world that we live in, and of course ourselves, we can, first of all, we can recognize that there are different ways of doing that, that we can understand and hierarchically rank. And first time chatter, welcome first time chatter. Let me do the introduction and I'll get to your question. And after ranking the different ways that we have of perceiving reality, how do we move into them? What difficulties do we have? Why do we fight against our own interests? Why do we stop ourselves from learning and stay loyal to the ignorance that we hold? What is so attractive about our ignorant states of being that makes us so closed, and not only closed, sometimes hostile to people who can actually help us and make our lives better? So, in other words, there are two parts to the game: truth, how to understanding truth, and humanness. The human process of relating to truth, recognizing that our response to truth is first of all to reject it, then to offer our own personal beliefs, then maybe take a little piece of it, and then maybe, okay, now we're open to truth, we see how truth benefits, but can't I keep my old beliefs? Can I unify the new and the old together until ultimately letting go of what's old, our old habits, our old ways of being, the things that we think we need, all that we know growing up is the perils of not believing in the same bullshit your family believed in. What happens if we step out of line, and realizing that that's all garbage. You lived in a kind of tyranny with your parents who controlled your, they played God, priest of the house. They told you what was reality. They told you how to live. And of course, as a 3-year-old, 4-year-old, you were completely dependent on that. And so we walk away taking the blame for that injustice and ignorance. And that blame has at its core a false image of ourselves as being lacking. Whatever I was doing when my parents came down on me, that must have been wrong. Not only that, but I could never have realized that what I was doing was wrong, because it wasn't wrong. So there's something wrong with my own mind. And I was just pursuing my own goals, but my parents want me to do what they want me to do. They see me as an appendage of themselves or an extension of themselves. They can't see me as an independent self, and they're not encouraging my development of myself to know myself. So we walk away, every human being, this is not personal, this is for every single human being who's ever existed. We walk away with a false belief about our own thinking or understanding, our own capacity of mind, and our own self. And of course, what we're discovering is once we leave our house and we have some maturity and some integrity to learn new things and some openness and curiosity within our heart to seek what's new and not just be a loyal debate pervert. These are the things I believed when I was 4 and I will fight to the death. Debate pervert. That we are those very things we are taught to fear, because all of them oppose belief If you understand, with understanding, you don't have to believe someone else. If you can directly comprehend with your mind, you don't have to believe someone else. And hey, the self, do you have to believe someone that you are a self? Sounds absurd, doesn't it? So these 3 higher cognitive functions and aspects of your being, you learnt to fear in order to save belief. Why? Because belief allows bad people to pretend that they're good. I know all about God. Why? I believe in this religion. Oh, do you? What about the 10,000 different religions that believe something completely different? No, they are all wrong. Based on what? Evidence? No, belief isn't about evidence. Reason? No, belief usually opposes reason. So it's just the family you were born into. Wow. Fascinating. Do you want to learn and change and apprehend truth and grow and develop and join the human race? Or do you want to be loyal to the negative way of being that you developed as a child? So that's why we develop a fear of understanding mind and self. But hopefully, as you're when you leave the house, or when you leave the house, you can run into someone who has a good mind and a good heart, perhaps a philosopher or dialectician, and they can help you reflect on your own way of being and realize, oh my goodness, this way of being that I thought was good is actually bad, and actually encourage you to develop understanding. Learn how to think for yourself and not be a slave to the habits you grew up with. And by the way, that understanding can lead to your own insights, your own peak experiences, your own non-physical experiences or enlightenment experiences. And of course, even those experiences have to be being experienced by something, leading us to the ultimate question, what is the self? Now, the difficulty is the human problem. You may be talking to the greatest philosopher on the planet who's able to help you reflect in the best possible way, but you'll fight against that. Why is that? Because that loyalty that we learn to our beliefs cause us to interpret personal opinions, personal interpretation. Therefore, we can recognize stages of development that everyone can go through, and that includes cognitive functions, belief and image thinking, understanding, direct apprehension, that which is beyond even mind. We can rank them, but we also have to recognize that in the human process to transport, to move between. In the human process to move between each one of those stages, we go through those 5 cognitive functions: image thinking, belief, understanding, knowing, and the self. We equally go through 5 kinds of personal interpretations. We'll reject what's true. That's not what I've heard before. That's bad and wrong. Get out of here. We'll offer our own personal beliefs. Well, I'm listening to you. I'm not just outright rejecting you like a chud. But what I think we should do is my beliefs. Taking a piece. There's reason and understanding. I like that, but only so we can be a rational Mormon, or a rational Episcopalian, or a rational whatever religion or belief system you grew up with. Keep them both. I like, thumbs up. I like thumbs down to that option. I like the idea of understanding, but can we keep beliefs as well? I mean, I don't want to be impolite. Isn't it rude to say that beliefs are bad because people love their beliefs? Even racist beliefs? Even Nazi beliefs? Even fascist beliefs? Even religious beliefs, all of which say that there's a chosen people that has a right to kill or oppress other people, and that God wants you to be in charge? Actually, now that we've reflected upon it, maybe beliefs aren't worth saving, because understanding is true, is required to solve problems, is required for us to reach our excellence, includes everyone, anyone can participate in understanding. So maybe I'm not going to hold on to my old beliefs. So what we have recognized is within that system, there are 4 activity stages where you still have a problem, where you're still going through some transition, rejecting, offering your own beliefs, taking a piece and trying to unify old and new, and one goal that sits atop. The last level of interpretation is non-interpretation, simply seeing what is true. And when we had that insight, we were able to apply it to those cognitive functions we develop through. Image thinking is a stage. It's the cause of our problems. The cause of our problematic images, shapes and color people. That's a different color. I don't like that. That's a woman shape. Ooh, I'm scared because I'm a conservative, or whatever. Has as their source beliefs. Our purpose is to recognize the beliefs we develop from childhood, and we've been ingraining ourselves in throughout our lives until we wake up to our purpose to develop understanding. So we move through belief into understanding. Understanding can lead us to knowing. Being able to awaken the eye of the soul that has the ability to comprehend as a whole the paradigm of the physical world. For there to be forces and principles that govern our physical world, there has to be a source which can't itself be physical, because everything has a cause. The cause has to be, what are the 3 words? Independent, prior, and superior. There's a painting, there has to be a painter. For there to be principles, well, for there to be a physical world that follows principles, those principles have to exist somewhere, thumbs up. And of course, for there to be experiences, even our greatest, most insightful experiences, there have to be a cause to that. So we recognize that even those 4 cognitive functions also follow that paradigm of 4 activities leading to an ultimate goal. And that's been our question as we've been going through this text that we've been reading. About close to 190 episodes in, closing on the big 2K. No, 200. 2K would be 2000. With that insight, we've gone through and we've looked at all of the other systems that we've been learning about, and seeing if we can employ that. If they're all rational, then they have to be following the same rational structure called the logos or dialectic. Dialectic, the structure of reason. That's why we use it in conversation to explore ideas. Hey, do you want to debate with some fascist or some believer? I believe this. What if you're wrong? I don't care. Beliefs aren't about right or wrong. It's about who you grew up with. Well, how can we explore the truth of ideas? So, to be able to organize your own thoughts and also organize the conversations that you have with people, it's a skill you have to learn. Like any other skill. You're not born knowing how to fly a plane. You have to practice and learn it and practice it. So too with the skill of thinking and conversation. That's called the dialectic. Structuring, ordering, guiding your thoughts rationally with integrity and maturity, exploring an idea. So that happens to be the fabric of reality. So we can look at other systems which also have a list of hierarchical terms and apply this insight of there being 4 activity terms and 1 ultimate goal that sits above, and see if that can shed some light, allowing us to gain a deeper insight into these other things we've been learning about, like causes. Why does something exist? No, you want to know about the causes. But then, with that insight in our back pocket, can we take it and apply it to what is most meaningful? Can we take these levels of understanding the truth of the reality that we're in and apply it to our most meaningful human activity. It's fantastic to recognize there's a structure in mathematics, or a structure in music, or a structure in causes, or a structure in cognitive functions. But can we take all of that and apply it to us, our human purpose, to develop through the dimensions of intelligence and being, to achieve our highest state of knowing and functioning, state of mind and activity, model activity, state of mind, thinking. Ousia, our capacity for self-reflection or reflecting on our state of mind, and logos, our capacity for language and understanding. Those are the two things that make us more evolved than caterpillars, cabbages, and cows. We have the capacity to self-reflect, and we have the capacity to do that with words. So all we are doing in our human task is putting them together, pressing the A and B button together to reach our purpose or goal, the meaning of life. And as we master that, by the way, the name of the skill that uses self-reflection and understanding together is, of course, the dialectic. But of course, you're not, as we mentioned, you have to practice it. And as you practice it, you free yourself from the lower cognitive functions, your own ignorance, your own loyalty to your old debate pervert.
I'm a debate pervert.
And I have an axiomatic
Of the Bible.
Yes, you're letting go of your old beliefs and images, opening yourself up to higher experiences, but also using understanding or the dialectic to reflect on those experiences so that you can integrate and function through them better. And of course, the Jesus problem, he had an experience of the divine and didn't do that work. So he became more loyally entrenched in his Jewish beliefs, claimed to be the next Elijah, etc., etc. A cautionary tale. And of course, the magicking from the dead, we know wasn't in the original text. It was added 200 years later by the church to turn a cautionary tale about the problems of not using understanding to make sense of your peak experience, turning it from that into just believing me, bro, is good actually. You should all believe me, says Paul, says the authorities of the church. Do what I say, kill who I say, give me the money. Let me do the sex crimes. Conservatism, capitalism, same thing. Just believe me, bro, or belief-based functioning. And we have evidence of that very clearly. That's the age we live in. When belief-based people get in control, death and disaster and destruction result. In the Dark Ages, when you could do medicine because of your religious beliefs, everyone died, everything went to shit. If anyone tried to fly a plane using their personal beliefs, it would crash, everyone would die. So we demand understanding for our doctors, for our pilots, for every profession. And the only remaining professions where we do not demand understanding, conservatives, who use their personal beliefs to justify ruling our society, religious officials who use their personal beliefs to justify ruling again over people in the physical world because they claim to speak for God, and capitalists. Born into wealth, owning all the capital, no development of understanding of how to use that capital to benefit the development and health of souls and the life that we live in and the planet that we share. None of that. It's just, well, I believe that the whites are better, says Elon Musk, and I'm going to use my money to play out the tragic implications of my racist beliefs. So we see everywhere we look, we see evidence of what we have come to see by reading this book for ourselves. And if you're new to the chat, you are a bit behind. You're about 190 episodes behind. So I suggest you go through and find these videos on YouTube and work through them at your own pace and read the book. And by the way, we're learning to read without interpretation. So it's a new kind of reading, which is why it's taken us so much time. But hey, it's given us something to focus on and share our collective attention on. That's fun, interesting, meaningful. So we've been having a blast all along the way. It's a win-win.
It's a win-win-win.
Win-win-win. So, taking our insights into the structure of reality, specifically 4 activity causes or activity stages leading to an end goal or a completion? And can we apply it to what's most meaningful for us, our human spiritual development? To understand, the closest thing to a map that we have in our culture, in our history of humanity so far, the closest thing to a map of spiritual stages of development, which is a kind of handbook used by Zen Buddhists, written down in the 12th century. That was for gurus to recognize when they're helping their student go through these stages of enlightenment, to recognize where they're at, what they're encountering, number one, the state of mind they're in, how they will function through that state of mind, and whether or not they are open to the next stage, which actually is that same 4 activity stages. Definition, what do they see? Demonstration, how does it affect their state of mind? Division, how do they function in all of the areas through that state of mind? And of course, conclusion, are they blocked from learning, from developing to the next stage, or are they open to the next stage? Dialectic, baby. And of course, we recognize that's what we are in as human beings too. Because we won't get the guidance we need to go through these stages, and between each stages, remember, it's not just truth. If it was just moving through stages, then we would be doing that. The human problem is we oppose that. So for every one of these stages, the 5 categories of interpretation, 4 activity steps, and then finally our goal, to be free of interpretation. You won't get the guidance on how to do that, or on what's blocking you from that progress, your own false beliefs, negative ways of being that you're addicted to, loyal to, unless you pay attention to your dreams. So it's important to recognize that these same 5 activities play out in your dreams. You have, when you have a dream, it will end in a conclusion, a success or failure, like the ox herding picture ends. The success or failure in your dream will be the result of the role the role or the division that you played, the role that you played in that drama. And that role or functioning within the drama of the dream will be like your state of mind or demonstration. And of course, your dream messages are to give you information about the false image of yourself that gave rise or caused that state of mind, leading you into philosophical midwifery. How do we address that negative state of mind and uncover that root false idea of yourself that you've spent your whole life identifying with, becoming your ego, becoming your persona, becoming your mask? But you never put it into words when you were little? Too dangerous? Given your dependence on your parents as a baby? So how do we infer what we don't even know we're carrying and address rationally, maturely, fairly, in order to free ourselves from that image of the self, to allow us to go to the next stage that we couldn't go into before because it was inconsistent with our idea of ourself? How can I be this great person if I think I'm a small bean? You can't be. You have to either sacrifice your idea of yourself or sacrifice the goal. And of course, what we've seen in the text is that highlights the difference between religion and philosophy. Religion, the root Anglo-Saxon for religion is to sacrifice. What you sacrifice is yourself, your mind and your understanding. You sacrifice what's good to become a loyal member of the belief tribe. Philosophy flips it on its head. No, what we want to sacrifice is our savage loyalty to false beliefs that cause harm in order to be open to the self. So that's that between philosophy and religion, or Socrates and Jesus, or in terms of cultures, the Hebrews and the Athenians, or in states of being, the children of Abraham compared to the Hellenic There are many ways of expressing these two fundamental ways of being, culturally, historically, and with these two characters of the book, Jesus and Socrates, that demonstrate the entirety of the human game. Our problems, belief. Its solution, understanding. That's it. Our excellence, understanding. Our ignorance, belief. To move from Jesus to Socrates, from children of Abraham to Hellenic, etc., etc. And once you've noticed, you'll find that dynamic of these two fundamental forces within everything that you look at, if you're open and you're curious. So that's what we've been doing. Let's now jump back into the ox herding pictures to see if we can apply this structure and see if it exists within the Buddhist Enlightenment stages, which is the closest thing to a rational account of the stages of human development for someone who is genuinely open and seeking their spiritual enlightenment, or a removal of their problems and a movement into excellence. Right, let's jump in. Okay, someone in chat, why do you talk in the air when nobody's listening? Oh, there are some people who are listening. There are people who are better than you. Nobody is watching besides me, so shut up. Yes, so there are people who watch. But of course, fantastic demonstration of human ignorance. You're talking to someone who could help you, but you're too fucking stupid to pay attention. Normal. But hey, there is and always has been an aversion to people who have a further development into understanding by those who are most ignorant. MAGA hates good people. They blindly support Trump. Yes. Holy Goislop. There we go. Jews hate people who are not Jews and will do a genocide against the Palestinians. Normal. Christians hate Muslims. Yes. Racism, sexism. Very normal, very normal. If you are someone who is more interested in playing out your ignorance at the harm of your soul and anyone you may have influence over, this isn't the stream for you, I'm afraid. It is the stream for you. I suggest you pay attention and you try and keep an open and curious mind, which is a sacrifice of your certainty for openness and curiosity. And instead of taking your own personal beliefs and opinions literally, try and become curious about them as analogy. That will build up courage and character. Yeah, so we have two shit chatters already. We don't usually get shit chatters. We usually get people who are at least somewhat curious and open. Yeah, I was wondering when we were going to come across the hardcore ignorant or the hardcore religious fanatics. And it seems we're there today, so there you go. But I doubt they will be around for much longer, if they are still here. So let's delete the spammers. Deleted. How do I delete them from the other thing here? Right, I think we're good. Make this chat a bit bigger so I can see it. There we go. So the causes that we can use to explain anything in the physical world, sometimes called the Aristotelian causes. Now, not technically, because Aristotle misses one of these. He thinks of 4 causes, but there are 5. Now, when we recognize that what makes us different from cabbages, caterpillars, and cows is our capacity for logos and ousia. We had 2 people in chat already today that demonstrated a shallow amount, making them zombies or NPCs. Savages, cavemen, primitives, because they have enough self-reflection to exist, stay alive, type on a keyboard, and enough language or logos participation to type in, I've deleted what they've said, but just the dumbest words they can think of. Slurs, whatever. So, there's an Olympic swimming pool amount of logos and ousia open to us, and next to it there's a shallow kiddies pool filled with piss. That's where they're in. And they're splashing around in the piss, splashing it on their faces, and laughing, thinking that they are so clever and so smart. Because they're throwing piss on their faces. Their own piss and the piss of other children. Now, the interesting thing is, if in order to progress, you need to be A, engaged in self-reflection, and B, doing so with logos or understanding or reason. But our human problems, we can also see on this list, the activities that we go through, the 4th and 5th hypothesis, belief and image thinking, function, that's the piss pool of ousia and logos, to oppose actual logos and ousia and block your participation in logos and ousia. That's why it's called pathologos. That's why it's a problem. Then it seems to be a catch-22. The very things you need for your development, logos and ousia, are the very things that human problems block specifically. However, there is a remedy. That is, everyone, and it's on the board, dreams. Everyone dreams. If you're like our 2 chatters, splashing around in their own piss, or the people who've been following along over the series, Olympic athletes of the mind using the Olympic-sized pool, whichever one you are getting dreams. And so we have the kinds of dreams there are 4 kinds of dreams that we go through in our developmental process, or the activity stages. Remember, let's look at the causes. Let's use Billy's house. The first cause is Billy needing a house to live in. So it's an idea, or it's the same thing. Billy living in a house is the first cause that gives rise to the activity, which requires blueprints, building, and bricks. And it's the final cause because Billy living in the house also tells you the house has been completed. So the first and final cause. Therefore, you can recognize these 4 as the activity causes as a whole. These are the things you have to make use of and go through in order to reach your goal. And once you're in the goal, you don't need the blueprints anymore. You don't need to hire the builders anymore. You don't need any more bricks. You don't need that stuff. If that's the case, we can take the 4 categories of dreams that we've been reflecting on and ask the same question. The most common dreams are pathologos dreams, solving our puzzle for our friends in chat. The Piss Brothers, they call themselves.
The more holes, the better.
Calm down. Because most of our dreams are about our problems or pathologos, meaning the very shallow amount of ousia and logos that is required to maintain our problems is made use of. And they may not realize they're here to reach a higher state of excellence than the state of being that they are addicted to and currently in, because that's all they know. They might not realize that. But you know what they do realize? They realize their problems suck. In principle, we seek our good and we seek to alleviate the bad. That's life. Fundamental. So they may not think, they might not have any goals. Maybe they've given up on goals. And of course, your goals has to be within an intelligible system. So the books that we reach. I don't want to read, says these piss brothers. So they don't have enough of a goal to be able to allow for their spiritual development within understanding a system that is intelligible, like the ox-herding pictures in the book that we're reading. We're doing both. End dreams. 3 birds in one.
It's a win-win. It's a win-win-win-win-win.
Exactly.
Oh, to be a man, honorable, filled with honor, and he is walking that talk, man.
That's right. We are walking that talk. Good sound drop. I like that one. It's a new one. So, a solution to man's problems is, of course, dreams. The most ignorant and the most wise, well, let's not say most wise, because if we can recognize 4 categories of dreams: problematic dreams, reminder dreams, prophetic dreams, and insight dreams, then we've got that same structure of 4 activities, which may be there is a higher kind of dream once you've completed, the equivalent to Billy living in the house, a goal at the end of the activity. What are those dreams again? Well, the most common, those pathologos dreams, giving even the piss brothers something to look at. Reminder dreams, reminding you when you're doing well, reminding you that, hey, you are doing well, your reading is going well, or you had this success that you might need a reminder about, you may have overlooked or you may not have valued it. Prophetic dreams. Ever met someone who said, I had a dream and it happened? That's this class. Ever had an insight in a dream, or an enlightenment experience in a dream, or experience yourself in a way that you don't normally experience yourself in the physical world? That's a insight dream. There must be some art required to communicate to us in a way that is beneficial and necessary. Whether it be the piss brothers who haven't seen the significance of reading and learning, or whether it be someone like a better chatter we had a couple of days ago who was exploring the idea of understanding. The 4 categories of interpretation we go through: rejecting the truth, offering beliefs, taking a piece, unifying the old and new, are all activities that are to do with holding on to the old beliefs. Now, as the Oracle says,
People don't logic their way into stupid positions. They stupid their way into stupid positions.
because they didn't logic their way in, we can't use dialectic alone, even if you're talking to the best dialectic. Some dust on my nose, itching me. The best dialectician who can lead you through the best kind of reason, for some people, well, it won't work. If it challenges you to go beyond the level of that you've reached currently. If it challenges your fundamental beliefs that you don't even know that you are carrying, but that you are addicted to or attached to or feel you need.
The problem is that you can't reason someone out of a position that they didn't reason themselves into.
So they can't reason themselves out of that position that they didn't reason themselves into. Right?
They're
Emma?
secretly turned on by it.
They're turned on by it. You're a gooner.
Goon, 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 goon.
Calm down, Emma, you gooner.
They're like a goon. They're a gooner.
Jesus Christ, Emma.
Hey, don't be so hard on Emma.
That's anti-feminist in some way.
In some way it is. So, the activity that's absolutely necessary for our development, especially for those, as we all have ignorance, we all have false beliefs and image thinking, even those blocked from reading these texts. It's beneficial, it's absolutely necessary, it's required. It's also the highest activity a human being can engage in. There must be some art required for these 4 categories of dreams. That art must have to have some insight into our past, necessary to give us pathologos dreams, because our problems are what we carry from our past. Our inability to see reality as it is without interpretation means we are carrying something through from our past that we are projecting onto the present or causing a blind spot. It must know about your current present to give you the reminder dreams of how you're doing. It must know about the future to be able to give prophetic dreams. And it must be able to connect to the highest states of mind and being to be able to provide insight dreams. That is divination. So the art of divination, prophecy, to be able to see the present and to be able to know the past, required arts within the art of the dream maker. So it leads to an interesting question. Well, the activity that we've been recognizing we're here to do, the activity, the instrumental, the doer, like a builder, is so making use of ousia and logos. All we're doing is adding that to the material causes, physical causes. What's it like to be a builder of ousia and logos? An instrumental or a doer? Oh, that's called a dialectician. So let's go from the beginning. The material cause, bricks. What are bricks, but bricks that have ousia and logos? Our 2 friends from the chat today. Brickheads, but they have some ousia and logos. Are they going to stick around in this stream for very long? No. So they're not an actual material cause because they're not making yet use of their ousia and logos. Those who are, want to reflect, want to get better, want to develop an understanding, those are the people interested in listening to a dialectician, an open and receptive soul. You can't be willing to listen until you realize you don't know already yourself. The Piss brothers think they know, so they're not going to listen. That's called to be open to recognizing you don't know something, but you're open to learning, and therefore you're willing to listen to someone being philosophically ignorant. All we're doing is adding ousia and logos to the causes. The activity. What allows the dialectician to relate to the pregnant party? The skill of dialectic and midwifery applied to texts or our problems, the mean cause. And the paradigm is, of course, being. So the dialectician reflects on his highest understanding or experience of being as the model of beauty and justice as he relates to the soul through the problems or through the text that you're exploring. So if these are 4 activity causes, we can say, well, what's the goal? What's that 5th cause that happens at the end? Completing your work. What is that? What is the ultimate activity that we are going to give rise to if we complete our work here? But also, The greatest activity we mentioned and the necessary activity is dream analysis. There has to be a dreamer, material cause. Has to be a dream that you look at through the art of dream analysis. You need a dialectician, dream analysis dialectician. We still don't have a word for that. Big sneeze. And the principles of dream analysis, which are not yet written, but you are being encouraged to write it into the dialogue that you do as a sequel to this book that we've read. Now, same question. What is the goal of that activity? And let's put them all together. So this goal that we're after would be therefore some sort of ultimate activity, but be some ultimate goal of gaining a mastery over dreams or with dreams. Will be some sort of ultimate art beyond even the art of divination. Is some sort of higher kind of dream that you might be getting or participating in. So it's all the same thing. Some sort of higher cognitive function of self beyond knowing and understanding. Some sort of true seeing that's non-interpretive. So by putting it all together, we are gaining more and more information about what our goal is ultimately. Right? Right. Now. How's my audio? I think I need to turn myself up a little bit. How's that? Maybe here. All right. So, pretty cool, huh? Yes? Cool? Yes? Yes? Now, we should actually add in, as our friends demonstrated today, well, not friends, the P brothers, demonstrated today, that along with those kinds of interpretation, let's make room for it. Let's move everything here over. They demonstrated, so within each of these cognitive stages that we go through, as we go through the levels of mastery of the activity we're here to master, you start at the bottom level, you start open and curious and looking for a dialectician, as Socrates looked for Parmenides and went with his buddies to track him down and talk to him. But then you gain a better understanding of the dialectic of the text that you've been reading, and then you become a dialectician, and then you become open to being. So each one of these are stages you go through all at once. You go through cognitive functions, you go through all this stuff. But as you go through these stages, you face these 5 levels of interpretation. How do these levels of interpretation function? The first thing you do when someone comes along with a deeper understanding that you have, that challenges your own dearly held false beliefs, you ignore them. That crazy person saying that stuff, I'm not going into that stream. And then we have our streamers today, our chatters today, the Piss brothers, who mock. There is something significant enough about what I was saying and doing that made them pay more attention than someone who would just ignore me. Mock. Similar to offering their own beliefs. To reject truth, you could just ignore it. See? See how the structures add up? You can move horizontally along any of these and gain insight. The next thing people do, when they feel challenged by a truth that challenges their old way of being, threaten. We will gang up on you. So you might see someone about to do something unjust and recognize the grin, the Joker smile, the grin of the bully. I'm going to do something bad and I like it. Sadism. Sadism. Because belief as a cognitive function doesn't have a feeling like knowing does. So that feeling of inflicting harm that's supposed to be bad for a species developing, some human beings take it, belief-based human beings take it as a substitute for the feeling state of knowing, because belief blocks knowing. Understanding is the activity required to do good, solve problems, and help develop excellence. Belief opposes that, so once again, it has to take as a surrogate. What can believers do? You can't fly the plane, but you can sure as heck crash the plane. Any idiot chud can crash a plane. Any idiot chud can destroy a computer. Any fascist can destroy a healthcare system, destroy an economy, drop a bomb on a children's school, do a genocide. So, belief-based people who are still attached to the cognitive function of belief and haven't yet recognized that belief maintains its existence by opposing the higher cognitive functions, and therefore opposing understanding, knowing, and the self, the three we mentioned today. Those people take as a surrogate for understanding and providence, doing good, they take harm and as a substitute for understanding, and they take as a surrogate for the feeling state of being a knower, sadism. That explains why capitalists are only ever killing and exploiting people, why conservatives are only ever harming and exploiting people, why the religious authorities are only ever killing, harming, torturing people. They are all belief-based groups, and they take the feeling of inflicting harm and the activity of doing harm as a substitute for wisdom. Wisdom being to operate with knowing and understanding. How did we learn this? Because human beings have parents who don't have wisdom, because if you did, you probably wouldn't have been reincarnated. I mean, you do within you, but we carry our beliefs as beliefs into this life. So our parents also pretended to know about reality, pretended to know about life. True. If you find that hard to imagine any other family with any other crazy religious beliefs or crazy ways of doing it or crazy ways of raising their kids or crazy habits. Do you think they're wise? Nope. Do their kids? Yep. Is that wild? It's a very, very small step to get to say, and therefore me as well. But of course, that step is difficult to take because of our love of our images of those people that we develop from youth. So that's the cause of sadism. What did our chatters in chat today do? Tried to say, I've deleted their comments, but it was stop doing this. They're not, help me create an even better stream than what you're doing with more appeal. No, it's just, this is bad, you should stop. They can't create anything, they can only do harm. And they do it in a smug way. By the way, this is also conservative comedy. That's why there is no funny conservative comedians. And it's a very easy formula. If you see those TikToks of those chud comedians who just abuse women in the crowd and laugh, all they are doing is doing harm, ignorant belief-based racism or sexism with a smug smile. Smug and cruel. Sadism, smug and cruel. It's the model for what it means to be knowing for the conservatives, the capitalists, and the clergy, and also the comedians of the right wing, the Joe Rogans. of the world. Smug and cruel. Now we understand why. And we can expect it. So, smugly and cruelly threatening. The next way human beings function negatively towards, level of interpretation, trying to unify the old and new. There must be something you throw out of the group that you are trying to unify, exile. They'll threaten you, and then when the threats don't work, the piling on doesn't work, the mocking doesn't work, the ignoring doesn't work, they'll try and kick you out of the group. You're not a Christian anymore. No more dream talks for you. That kind of stuff. And what's the ultimate goal that puts an end to these activities? Killing. Genocide. The final solution. Armageddon. Now notice, these don't fit into what we are exploring, because all of these other things are positive stages of development. So our question that is to take all of these higher goals and put them all together to find one ultimate goal that's an ultimate art, an ultimate activity, an ultimate participation in dreams, an ultimate kind of dream, an ultimate first cause, an ultimate cognitive function, an ultimate level of dialectic beyond the four activities of the dialectic. You could say, well, the ultimate killing would be the killing of ignorance, or the killing of the pathologos. Sacrifice. Question mark? Now, human sacrifice, or killing, murder, is of course the realm of belief, but we have said our philosophy has a similar sacrifice, but not sacrificing the good, sacrificing the bad. Letting go of your interpretations to sacrifice your false beliefs. So in that way, we can save our model. While recognizing that the negative version of this is the last thing that fascists or belief-based people will do. If the Piss brothers stuck around, they might have gone from mocking to threatening. I'm going to report you, exiling, I'm getting you kicked off the YouTubes, and then I'm going to kill you. We are going to evade you because one of our chatters seemed to be Jewish and called me a goy. A goyim. Which, I mean, every belief group has a word that dehumanizes and otherizes and villainizes the non-members. Heathen, heretic, infidel, woke. Goyim is one of them. I don't know what the Mormons call the people who wear regular underpants.
Gooners.
Maybe gooners. So let's add that in, because we had that today, we might as well use it. Sacrifice. So, yesterday we added also, there was a question about animals and intelligence that came up. And so we explored that idea. Let me move my fan. Be right back. Cough, cough. All right, so here we go. So, amoebas have some sort of sensation. We have been talking about caterpillars, so let's use caterpillars because of cabbages, caterpillars and cows we've been talking about, haven't we? Let's say cabbages. Cabbages. Cabbage. First dimensional intelligence, sensation. Plants can sense things, like light. Cows, second dimensional intelligence. Sensation plus perception. Ooh.
Making ice cream's a good and courageous thing.
Dude, suck my dick.
Oh my goodness, you guys. Third dimensional intelligence, human beings. We have sensation. We sense things. We have a perception of that sensation. And we also have concepts, giving us the very conditions for the human drama. Injustice, torture, abuse, murder, enslavement, capitalism, conservatism, religious oppression. Cows don't do that. The sorts of things that we do to our own species and the habit we live at the planet we inhabit, cows don't do it. We are fucking savages as a species. Because our ability to have concepts means we can have images of truth and reality and goodness based in belief, a cognitive function that opposes what's beyond concepts, ideas, eidos, capital I, ideas, that are not of the physical world, but of the cause of the physical world, mind and being. That, as we've just pointed out, takes as a surrogate the ability to do harm, or sadism as a surrogate for doing good and the feeling of doing good. So that's the consequence or the double-edged sword of being a third-dimensional intelligent entity through our evolutionary stages. Concepts. Now, what we've been reading in the book is Socrates introducing a fourth dimensional intelligence, intuitive intelligence, which is related to the art of divination, which one comes to awaken, sometimes called the eye of the soul, through participation in divination through dreams. Our ability to participate in divination is our ability to participate in dreams. As we've broken down, dreams have prophecy and insight, have an awareness of our past, present, and future as a whole. These are more than sensation, perception, and concepts. This is a higher dimensional. Like imagine there's a YouTube video, Flatland by Carl Sagan. That kind of level of perception over time and space is necessary for divination, is necessary for dreams to be created the way they do. Therefore, the greater we participate and develop a kinship with our dreams, the greater we prepare ourselves to awaken our own art of divination, or the fourth dimensional level of intelligence called intuitive intelligence. And because we have this fantastic map, we can go along, double jump like a Mario brother, or triple jump from, intuitive intelligence. It's kind of like inside dreams. Oh yeah. It's kind of like the art of divination. Oh yeah. That must be employing the principles of dream analysis. Oh, that's interesting. So we don't have a greater insight and intelligence to harm human beings, but we would always be following the principles that we follow in dream analysis to create the conditions for development and benefit. Similar to or relating to being in some way. Mind, our greatest insight. This perception of the whole. Oh, so this insight into the non-physical dimension of reality, that's the spiritual, the first of the two kinds of spiritual experiences, is somehow related to the principles of dream analysis, somehow related to the art of divination, somehow related to insight dreams. Well, that's what makes them insight dreams. They give you those kinds of enlightenment experiences, or the higher ones. But it's also related to intuitive intelligence. That's interesting. And of course, you can go through all of them. Except for it's not exile. So these four here kind of don't fit, do they? They happen within each in a negative way, within each level of interpretation. But so we can maybe leave these out. We'll throw them in there because it's important to recognize. Oh yeah, I'm being mocked. Oh yeah, that's one of the 5 negative things you can do. By the way, just so I know, as you're mocking me, what level of what was the idea that you were relating to specifically? What was the idea? Oh, okay, that understanding is good. Okay, good. By the way, when you heard that, just so I know, what level of interpretation were you having? They'll look at you like you're crazy. Why? Because they don't have understanding. Oh. When you heard that, what did you want to do? Well, I wanted to just reject it. Oh, okay. So you're at this level of interpretation. Okay, so I know where you're at. I wanted to take a piece of what you're saying, but only a piece, because I wanted to get rid of all the other shit. Oh, you're at this. And to take a piece of that idea about understanding, and your reaction to anything else was mocking. Okay. That's where you're at. Now, we could have asked our chatters in chat those kinds of questions. Maybe we'll do that next time. Although the Piss brothers probably wouldn't have answered because they were being belligerent. What they found funny was not engaging with human language in a rational way. You want to have a rational conversation? Penis. Baby brain shit. So, I mean, we'll see if we can catch the next one. So what? So what have we done? We've come to gain an insight into the art of divination, or the next level of intelligence beyond regular humans. Kill or sacrifice. Now we'll put this in brackets, because that's not what we want to. Actually, let's get rid of that. I don't like having the word kill up there on the board. Let's get rid of that. So, 4th dimensional intuitive intelligence that Socrates explains in the book we're reading as, let's see it. Now, I thought I was able to, like, as I changed scenes, I noticed lately, as I checked the recording, there was a spike in volume of the background audio. And I thought I'd fixed it by arranging my audio media player in a different way. And then I saw yesterday's episode, and what do you know, when I change between scenes, the audio spikes. So I did something differently this time, and I hope it's not spiking. That's it. I just hope it's not spiking. I didn't check. I'll check after this one. So, in the book that we're reading, let's have a look at it. Socrates, I want to follow those who have a kinship with dreams as they practice philosophy. Remember, it's non-interpretive. It's the dialectic. It's a way of practicing reading and reasoning. In the continuous study of dreams, imagination becomes conjoined with our profound understanding. Ousia and logos coming together. And it does make that noise.
You're beautiful and everybody loves you, and you have the most beautiful breasts and the juiciest ass.
My ass? That's wonderful.
That's funny.
Not funny, it's true.
What the hell kind of a show is this? What is this, the comedy mothership?
Maybe. Imagination becoming joined with a profound understanding. Not understanding how many beans there are in China, true understanding. The sort of things that we've been doing. The sort of thing that this whole table is about. That awakens our divine character. Divine of the gods. Of being. Of mind. Notice concepts can be about our physical senses, not of mind. Belief. Divine character through which intuitive intelligence or the eye of the soul can be approached and experienced. Okay? And it's from God that the knowledge of dreams comes. So our dream maker or the self or God has this ability to function or gives rise to this knowingness. This is a kind of knowledge which fits in our map, because knowing is, of course, that level 4. Garbage.
How can you be this stupid? How is it legal? How is it legal?
How is it legal that I just deleted everything?
I'm going to get you. I'm going to find you. And I'm going to get you.
Oh my goodness. Knowing comes from the highest idea of God. So it derives from it and it's being used by it. Which is the 4th level, which is of course where we're looking at having that as a cognitive function, or as a level of intelligence, would be that 4th dimensional intuitive intelligence. Because the gods were not independent floating beings, but rather pure intelligences. Dreams are the essential part of the art of divination. So there's knowingness as a whole in a way that unifies imagination and understanding, which is necessary for analogy. Why? Because analogy is both. You use your profound understanding, as we've got all these maps, to create an image to represent any one of those categories. This duck represents belief. This pigeon represents understanding. And the pigeon bites the duck or something. Analogy. So analogy uses both. So we can ask the question, well, hang on a second. Haven't we been participating in analogy all the way through this book, looking for puzzles to be solved, incomplete analogies, finding the terms, finding the relationships, solving the puzzles? Couldn't you aren't all of these analogies? Can you say belief is to division as understanding is to demonstration? Mocking is to, or offering the dream analysis dialectician is to the dream as the dialectician is to the text you're reading. See? Seems to be a higher level of intelligence that's able to function in that way more artfully and immediately. That's the intelligence that we're awakening. All mankind could be visited by the pure intelligence and by God. So there we get the division. Pardon me. All of mankind could be visited by pure intelligence and by God, meaning that pure intelligence itself of knowing or divination or insight or ousia or intuitive intelligence is not the same as God. God, which would be all of the things on the top line. Self, yeah, all of it. Right. So, dreams come to us all, and they reveal a personal knowledge about our struggles that we most desperately need to know. And it's entirely unnecessary to interpret dreams. They become visible from the depths of obscurity through the kind of reflection that we both know is the passageway to the divine, the dialectic. Right, so that's where we are. Nice review. Our question is, well, what is that art of divination? And how does it relate to the stages of enlightenment, or the ox-herding pictures? And we posited last time, hang on a second, if the first stage of enlightenment is the third ox-herding picture, the glimpse of the ox, and the second stage of enlightenment is catching the ox, or having old unhealthy tendencies, isn't that the very description of the state of the soul that begins dialectic? An open and receptive soul who recognizes that they are ignorant. They're unlike the piss brothers today. They have a state of mind and a way of thinking that is a problem, and they know it is a problem. They recognize that their state of mind they've been carrying through their whole life is like an unhealthy, unruly ox that needs to be tamed, which therefore becomes the material cause, or the bricks to be builded on by the dialectician, with the dialectician. So it does fit into this category, or at least the fourth one. Hang on a second. The third stage of enlightenment, taming the ox, is when you are solving problems and you are starting to notice that there is an intelligibility behind your problems. Every thought has a cause from a prior thought. And they're not bad or wrong. You don't have an illness or a mental illness or whatever. It's not delusion. The only delusion is when you think that those aren't real. Now, by real, we don't mean literal. Again, literal is belief-based thinking. Analogical messages that you relate to, not with certainty and literalism of your ousia and logos of belief, but open-minded and curious, and metaphor or analogy of understanding. And when you do that, you start to notice that there is an intelligibility within your problems. Hang on a second. And you start to have some success. That's just like the open and receptive soul engaged in midwifery on their blocks. Why are you able to do midwifery? Because your problems are rational and solvable in principle. That's what led you to seek a midwife. Shoulder. I'm gonna sit like this for a while. So, what are we noticing? We're noticing that the enlightenment stages, following a glimpse that wakes you up to a different way of being than you're used to, maps with the 4 activity causes. Isn't that wild? Which means that the 6th ox-herding picture, or the 4th stage of enlightenment, should be our instrumental cause, the dialectician, the dream midwife. What is it? Riding the ox home, directing the rhythm, singing the songs that can help everyone, rustic farms, rustic woodsmen, or simple children, village children. Singing the songs. As you ride the ox, you make use of your mind. So you're using your mind, you're not fighting your mind. Why is it? Why are you not fighting your mind? Because the unhealthy habits are when human beings do anything other than dialectic. Because then you're doing anything other than your intended function, your purpose, the meaning of life. the reason we're here. So you're not fighting it, so you're having some success, or your ox is going back to its old habits and muddy haunts. Oh, God. You're not doing that, you're riding the ox. You're making use of your mind, you're not fighting it. And what does that allow you to do? Participate in the harmony. But of course, the ox herding pictures are metaphors. What does harmony represent? Patterns, order, the logos. So you're able to direct the logos of conversation, making use of your mind, doing your intended function at all times. That's called being a dialectician, baby.
If you don't know, now you know.
Now you know.
I'm joy maxing, okay? And if I aura
It makes sense.
Jester goon maxed,
We'll be Jester Goon Max. And it does make sense, right, Emma?
That's funny.
Thank you. So, hang on a second. Got the material cause, the ox with problems. You're starting to realize there's a mean cause or some activity. Now, we saw last time that it's pretty cool that there are 4 activity causes leading to a goal. But the paradigm sits above the triad, and the triad is more of the activity. It's the builder building on the bricks. So that's even more of the activity than the blueprints. And within that triad, the middle term is even most of the activity. The building. You can have bricks that aren't engaged in the activity of building. You can have a builder on his smoko break. But building is the activity. That's funny. There's an activity triad within the activity set of 4 quadrad. And there's an activity that's the most activity of all of the activities. Don't know the significance of that. Just some cool symmetry and beauty, I suppose. So, the builder building on the bricks, we're missing the blueprints. The 7th ox herding picture, we are wondering, can we take that as the paradigm that the midwife is using? Well, the 7th ox herding picture is the ox transcended, no longer needing the whip and the net, no longer needing the method, because the gold has been separated from the dross. Now this is interesting. The paradigm or the model, the ideal, just as the doctor has an ideal body he reflects on to be able to do the doctoring on the patient, the ideal mind seems to be one free of problems. Wow. Wait a minute. If the ideal blueprint is one free of problems, if the material problem, if what defines the 4th ox is an ox with unhealthy tendencies, and the 5th ox herding picture is solving those unhealthy tendencies so you can function with your mind, every single one of these isn't about philosophical insight or reading. Every single one of the 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th ox herding pictures are specifically about philosophical midwifery. Only that tradition didn't have a word for it, seeing as we lost it with Socrates when the state killed him in front of his student, who himself hadn't completed his dream analysis and midwifery. And Homer, so the Homerics knew about it. It's the art of the Homerics. And if Homer was the reason the government used to kill Socrates, you can see why Plato might have had a problem with midwifery and the idea of the pathologos. So what have we done in our reading? We took the 9 hypotheses of Parmenides that represent the goal, the self, Socrates speaking of himself from himself. and the 4 activity stages leading through it, to go from image thinking through belief, through understanding, through the penultimate spiritual state to the ultimate, through the dialectic. And he also gives 4 ways of being that can categorize human problems, because there are an objection to each one of them. So if you become stuck in any one of those stages, it's because as a human being, you're stuck in the 4th, because the nature of all human blocks are fundamentally our blocks or problems prevent that development, meaning we are against one of those stages, which is because of a false belief we're carrying from childhood. So each of these negative hypotheses, ways of thinking that reject the positive, would be therefore the kinds of human problems that we can have. And we've been looking at the 7th, the most common and most dangerous, because its false belief opposes understanding. The conservatives, the right wing, the religious, the Nazis, that think everything is a battle between good and evil. The bad guys are just bad, so we can bomb them. It's not because they have ignorance. If the cause of human problems is what it actually is, what we can see here, belief, then the solution is to meet all material conditions, free human beings from work by using technology efficiently, renewably, and sustainably, and not for exploitation and profit for billionaire Epstein class people, so that we can engage in dialectic. You solve problems by reasoning upon their causes, which is your beliefs, which is literally the reason we're here in our stage of evolution. They are opposed to that. What's that? That's providence. They're opposed to intelligent care. Sadists. That's the 7th hypothesis. And the image is a bad guy on one side and a good guy on the other side, and a lightning bolt between them. The Abrahamic religions, of course. The devil and Jesus, or the devil and God. Problem isn't because of ignorance and false beliefs and ignorance, with ignorance being ignorance, false beliefs and image thinking. It's because of the devil. And the devil doesn't want to learn. Very common. Even the people who came into chat today, they had an objection to something, but their reaction wasn't, well, if I have an objection to something, that means either you have ignorance, so I can share what I see and understand with you to improve your ignorance, or I have ignorance. I think we've got a drop for this.
There's only 2 options at the end of an argument. 1, you're wrong, but now you always get to be right about that topic going forward. So you get to learn something, which is always a plus. Or 2, you're right and you get to revel in being right.
It's a win-win.
It's a win-win-win.
That's right. So we do have a sound drop for that, as I just played. But notice, they didn't do that. Their reaction to something different from what they're used to, their family, clan beliefs and ways of being, is to attack, mock, threaten, exile, or kill. 7th hypothesis, you're different, therefore you're bad. So as one of the chatters says, you're a goyim, you're not a Jew. Or MAGA would say you're a woke. Or Christians would say you're a heretic. Or Muslims would say you're a infidel. And the Mormons would say that you're a non-magic underpants gooner.
Goons of gooners.
And the gooners.
Some goons and some gooners and some weirdos.
And some weirdos.
They're like a goon. They're a gooner.
And this is the one that we explored in the book that leads ultimately to Armageddon, the destruction of our race and our planet. Which is what we are on the precipice of, because we have allowed these 7th hypothesis belief-based groups in power over ourselves and our society under the forms of conservatism, capitalism, and religion. In particular, Abrahamics, but religion itself as a principle is to be bound by belief, which is the problem. So, the book said, hey, we need to add in one more hypothesis that's missing. It's very clear once we wrote it on the board, the missing hypothesis, or the 10th hypothesis, is the pathologos. The ruling term, or the 5th, that rules over the 4. Therefore, we can bring in our threatening, mocking, whatever negative reactions to truth that we demonstrated and looked at today. What we are supposed to sacrifice or kill is the pathologos, our false image of the self that we are carrying that causes our loyalty to these false beliefs and ways of being and ways of functioning. So the 4 general categories of human problems and its ruling term, but also now we can take this in to our map and say our goal, therefore, would be not just a return to self, but a mastery over the pathologos. In other words, in order to reach any one of these higher stages, you have to challenge what opposes it. You can't deal with your images if you're a nihilist in the 9th hypothesis that says no rock. There are no images. You have to deal with that to address your images. You can't deal with your problems as beliefs as a whole if you are a materialist and you think there are only rocks. There is no whole. There is no mind. We're just chemicals squirting in the brain. You have to deal with this one before you can master that one. So therefore, in principle, before you can master the self, which is our goal, to know the self, we have to gain mastery over the pathologos by understanding its 4 classes of activities or categories and understand it as a whole itself. So we can bring that pathologos back to our list and include it here. Let's do it. Rip. And what color? What color? How about dirty purple? Or is that dirty purple? No. So we can have the nihilism. Or the 9th hypothesis. Materialism or reductionism, or the 8th. I like to include reductionism because it really demonstrates it's a common one as well. Materialists will often function in a reductionist way. Love is just chemicals in your brain. Dreams are just neurons firing. Reductionism. Abrahamic, or what would we call that? We could say it's Zoroastrianism, good versus bad, or Abrahamic. Let's use either of those. Zoroastria or Abrahamic. Running out of space, aren't we? Zoroastrian or Abrahamic, good versus bad, which is the 7th. And the 6th is Mickey Mouse. Mickey Mouse or isms. We're not opposed to understanding, but the whole that we come together with understanding to create as a unity, see, unifying the old and new. Unity is something we just make up. So the isms, socialism, capitalism, Marxism, it's the model that we should base our life upon is something that we can invent, not something that exists eternally. Because if there is a pattern that exists internally, we should be able to apprehend it. But if it exists eternally, it's non-physical. If it's non-physical, it has to be perceived in mind knowing itself in a non-physical dimension of reality, which is the penultimate enlightenment experience, or knowingness, or the second hypothesis. And all of these are the 10th hypothesis, the pathologos. Image of self. So, our goal is knowing the self, like the first hypothesis, as a cognitive function, and as an art beyond divination, a mastery of dreams beyond dream analysis, an activity beyond the dialectic, highest kind of dream, a fifth dimensional intelligence beyond even intuitive intelligence, and also requires a mastery of the pathologos too. So, makes sense. If this is the same level, the goal is the level of our dream maker, and how dream maker shares you insights and reminders about the self, but also pathologos dreams about your image of your false image. Well, yeah. Your goal would be to return to the self not only with a mastery of the logos, but a mastery of the pathologos, allowing your functioning in the highest kind of activity, using the highest kind of art, like the dream maker, the highest member of the 5 categories required for dreams. So, hey, why do we have dreams? Well, there has to be a dreamer having the dreams. That's the material cause. So this is the significance of the causes. Dreams. Well, you have to have a dreamer, otherwise you can't have dreams. You have to have a dream being experienced and reflected upon. You need some sort of skill to be able to understand those dreams. That skill has to be in relation to some sort of principle or paradigm of dream analysis. Intelligibility of dreams. Dreams are intelligible, and there has to be something making it. And if anyone who looks and anyone who does this will come to see for themselves that your dreams are sharing important, necessary messages about your problems and your excellence, you can't reject any one of these. And you'll come to see, shit, it must have some divination art, knowing about my future, past and present. It must have insight, prophecy, reminder, understanding of human problems, pathologos. They must all be there. By the way, you have to be open to that. And if you don't realize you have a problem you can't solve, you won't give a shit about learning about your dreams. You will think you know better. You will be in any one of these. There is no such thing as meaning of dreams because nothing exists, nihilism. There is no such meaning of dreams because dreams are just physical chemicals, reductionism, materialism, just neurons firing. There is no meaning of dreams because any conflict you have in dreams is just the devil tricking you, or some representation of your own sinful nature, Zoroastrian or Abrahamic. Or there's no meaning of dreams because that would imply there is a higher intelligence, and all we know is the physical world, isms. 2 spam bots in a row.
I hate that robot, and I want that fucking robot to die.
Oh my goodness.
It's a rug pull.
You're a rug pull.
Worse than slop sludge.
How can you be this stupid?
Further fill the internet with spam and AI slop.
That's what you are doing, spammers. Further filling the internet. So when you do become open and curious, because you have a reason to do so, because you've recognized a problem that you are having with your state of mind, you are not yet enlightened. I don't care. Well, you don't care what your parents or clergy or priest or imam says, you realize you have not reached a knowing of self and reality and realize where you came from, what you're supposed to be doing here, what happens when you die, the highest reach of your intelligence, and what is the nature of the self. You realize you don't know those things. Congratulations, you're in the second stage of enlightenment, which might explain why so few people are doing dream analysis, considering it's literally, by definition, the most meaningful and important and necessary human activity. So we talked about how to actually organize human society, meeting material conditions, creating the freedom from work and exploitation so we can engage in dialectic. Actually, so we can engage in dream analysis. Every school should be doing dream analysis before morning tea time. Hooray! Now we just got to be patient until it takes effect. Now that we've put it out into the universe, we will use positive thinking. The secret. Oh, dream analysis in every school. Oh, a dream analysis person at every shop corner. Oh, every gun shop replaced by a dream analysis center. Oh! Now the universe will do it, maybe. Right?
It's not being crazy. It's called reaching a higher sense of being.
I'm not crazy. I'm in a higher sense of being.
Cookie maxing.
I should eat a cookie. I'm kind of fading. I should have a cookie. I've been doing cardio recently, and I am tired. All right, so being open and receptive to addressing your problems through dream analysis, we could recognize as the second level of enlightenment, or the fourth oxiding picture, helping us realize why so few people are interested in it, considering it's the most important and necessary for awakening your fourth level of intelligence as well. So even evolutionarily speaking, we should be looking at our dreams. It's through our dreams we participate in insight and prophecy, which are lesser arts to the ultimate art. Meaning there's a fifth dimensional intelligence that we are curious about as our question. That fifth dimensional intelligence will be a higher kind of dream, a higher kind of art, a higher kind of participation, relationship with the creation of dreams and metaphor, a higher kind of activity, the first and final cause, a non-interpretive seeing, a mastery of our pathologos, a cognitive function beyond knowing, and some level of self, or the self, putting it all together. So, if that's the case, isn't it wild that even though they didn't have a language for it or a tradition for it, what the Zen Buddhist recognized as progressive stages of their students getting better relate to entirely philosophical midwifery. There's no insight dreams here. It's all a matter of recognizing your unhealthy tendency, solving your problems, learning how to direct reflection to solve problems, and the model is an ox separated, or the gold separated from the dross. It's purification. So where does the philosophy come in? These are all just removing what's false. Well, let's have a look. I need to cookie max. The first ox-herding picture, the first level of ignorance we saw in our chat today. Why search for the ox? I already know what my mind is. Nothing wrong with my state of being. I like my state of being. I like being stupid and cruel and smug about it. That's why I go to Joe Rogan's comedy specials. because of your defilements, what we recognize as because of your pathologos false beliefs. You've lost sight of the ox. Greed for worldly gain and dread for loss. Your ideas of right and wrong dart out like daggers to attack people or mock or threaten or exile or kill most of the population. Discovery the footprints, finding the tracks through sutras and teachings you can discern the tracks of the ox. There's our philosophy. Reading, that's why we read together on this channel books that kick ass. Insight, first glimpse of the ox. You've seen the source. You've seen that your six senses actually have a single sense, which is the true source, which is in everything, like salt in water or binder in paint. You've seen the source of consciousness itself. There's your philosophy. There's your reading and insight. There's your Apollo and Aphrodite, your logos and your ousia. Now you recognize that what you just experienced is not how you normally think of yourself. By virtue of being a human, we are carrying a false image of ourselves that prevented our further reincarnation and spiritual experiences, said Socrates to Jesus in this text. Meaning we're here to address our problems. We're here to get problems so we can address them. And as we saw, leading ultimately to a return to self with a mastery of problems, a mastery of the pathologos. So we're not only returning with an understanding of self, we're returning with an understanding of the image of self that ain't self. So we're learning about self from what it is and what it ain't, from its truth and its image, from virtue and vice, because all vice is the appearance of virtue. Not the devil, that would be Zoroastrian Abrahamic. Vice ain't the devil. When you have problems, it's not because, well, we've all got a little bit of sin in us. We've all got a little bit of evil in us. We've all got original sin. We've all got a little bit of the devil. Bollocks, bollocks, bollocks. Your badness isn't because you got the devil in your heart or original sin or any of that shit. By the way, read the book of Genesis and you'll see that the snake was the hero. The snake didn't lie. There was no punishment. Eve remained in the garden. Adam wasn't expelled. He went to a sacred space where he derived his own existence from. It's garbage. It's just horseshit. There's no original sin. It's just made up nonsense. And of course, if you're this far into the series, you probably recognize that quite easily. So recognizing that vice is the shadow virtue. His great will and power are inexhaustible. Inexhaustible. Whoops.
You have the brain of a child if you think that.
Whoops.
They're completely lying to you. They're completely lying.
What is this damn Opie and Anthony? Okay, whatever.
Oh, whatever. Your problems are inexhaustible. Your highs, your lows, your addictions to what you think are worth doing, and your problems. So whatever draws your mind into your old habits, you can't get rid of. Inexhaustible. Impenetrable. Stubborn and unbridled. You can't break your old habits. It's not easy. Philosophical ignorance. The material cause within the true human game. So we use the causes to make it even more simple. It's not the bricks that you're building a physical house with in the physical causes. We're adding ousia and logos, open and receptive soul, open and receptive to your problems, or ideally, your dreams too, which will tell you about your problems through analogy. So someone genuinely engaged in dream analysis because they genuinely want to solve problems and they genuinely recognize there are some problems they just can't solve or they just don't know. That's the second stage of enlightenment. Is that interesting? The fifth, taming the bull. You realize that there's a causal connection from one thought rising to another, and the realization, so it's a kind of insight, but not an insight into reality. The realization is an insight into your problem. This level of enlightenment brings a realization that thoughts are not unreal, not because you've got a sinful heart, or because everything is delusion, or because problems you need to ignore because problems are a sickness. They're not a sickness. They're not to be ignored or rejected or threatened or exiled or kill yourself with psycho drugs or whatever. They are all intelligible. It is only because ignorance remains that you think that your thoughts are unreal. Not literal, remember? Not certainty and literalism, but curiosity and analogy. And by the way, your delusion or your problems isn't real in the objective world. It comes from what you carry in your own mind. When you start to see the intelligibility of your problems because you have been an open and curious soul and you have been reflecting on your dreams and you start to even have some success, sometimes it becomes naturally gentle and sometimes it goes off down some dusty road. Congratulations, when you start to see the intelligibility of your problems and your dreams and start to have some success, you are in the third stage of human enlightenment. Congratulations. Notice, the realization isn't about reality, either the source of consciousness or its source, the self, the ultimate and penultimate. It's about your delusion. Isn't that wild? The second and third is about problems and not reality. Riding the ox home. Mounted the ox, I return homeward. You are going in the direction of home. You're not at home yet. But what can you do? The voice of my flute intones through the evening, measuring with hand beats the pulsating harmony. You can direct it. Directing the harmony. Harmony is a metaphor for the harmony of the self-logos. What's the name for the instrumental cause that directs the harmony? You guessed it.
I'm eating the testicles of this bull, and I'm eating it raw bull balls. This is raw buffalo balls.
No. You're not eating the testicles of the bull. You're riding the bull. The dialectician. Whoever hears this melody will join me. Join us on the human game. The Hellenic man. The purpose of your birth. The purpose of your existence. The purpose of our fucking species. Imagine that. So while this is individual, it's also collective, as a species. These stages of enlightenment are what human beings go through in their development. It's not just some special group of mystical Buddhists with a funny hat or a funny cloak or a shaved head. No, it's humans. Meaning this return to the self with a higher art and activity and cognitive function and intelligence is not only our individual destiny, but the destiny of mankind itself. Meaning there might be a role if we address the problems faced by delusion, believers, conservative, capitalist, and clergy, and purify that ignorance and govern ourselves rationally using universal principles, universally applied for universal benefit, not just benefit the billionaire Epstein class, not just benefiting people short-term while the earth burns, not just benefiting some shareholders that live on some tax haven island, but benefiting everyone universally, rationally, not killing scientists who find free energy, but utilizing technology, not using it inefficiently to maximize short-term profits before you sell the company, but to use technology rationally, sustainably, renewably in a way that meets all human needs and material conditions, creating the conditions of freedom from work, freedom from sacrificing your life via work and slavery for survival. To create the conditions for this kind of excellence, there may be a role for our species within a greater cosmos. In other words, the thinking of these people stuck in these 4 negative ways of being that will lead to Armageddon and extinction and the mass injustice and tragedies and sadism we see sweeping across our planet is the result of us being an ignorant species stuck in the 3rd level of intelligence, preventing our evolution. Literally, evolutionarily, there's a map. Is it O'Brien or someone? There's a map that maps the stages of evolution. Our current level 1 level is to take care of our planet and the animals on it, and to make use of the resources for what we just explained. But eventually, not just being a guide for this planet, maybe we can have a guiding art and role within a greater cosmos. Or something we can think about. Might be worth saving our species in that case, as well as doing our individual purpose and going through our own individual development, whether or not the rest of our species wakes up and stop being savage, sadistic believers. So this will apply to everyone. Gloop Glop, our planet on Galaxy Omega 8, they won't have stories about Jesus or Abraham or the Jews. They'll have their own stories about the Gleep Glorps being the chosen people and the Speak Sparks being the bad people or whatever. But it'll be a belief. If they're at the level of intelligence of cows, they won't have a religion. If they're at the 3rd level, they'll have concepts, which of course can be exploited through belief. That's why the scammers always target the religious or the right wing. And there are some fun articles on how scammers in India target MAGA specifically, because they know that it's the MAGA chuds that will buy their racist bullshit. So the irony being, some brown person in India is saying, we should kill all brown peoples. Buy my product. Or as there's a famous article that I read, that I heard about recently. Some Indian doctor who wants to migrate once he has his degree is saying, we should get rid of all immigrants as an AI-generated OnlyFans model. Because they found, the people who buy it are the belief-based people, the MAGA, the religious. So just throw in some stuff about Jesus. Hey, who sells what is one of the most unjust people ever to live? Donald Trump do? Holds a fucking Bible. Sells his own Bible. Sends out AI images of himself as Jesus. So that's the ignorance we have to understand and address, that we'll equally be able to address wherever it arises in any galaxy at any time, which might be a role that we can use our art for as a race that has addressed its own problems. So whether or not we do that, we can still do it for ourselves. So, riding the bull is about being a midwife. It's about your ignorance. Your reading and your insight was the 3rd ox herding picture in the 2nd. Isn't that wild? So what are we doing? We're returning to this ancient or 12th century Buddhist model, the closest thing to a map or a logos of spiritual enlightenment that we've got. We do have the hypotheses from Parmenides, the closest thing to a model of truth that we have. But of course, we killed Socrates before he was able to share what we needed for the 10th ox herding picture, which is necessary for the movement. So while we had the stages of cognitive development and the classes of human ignorance, we killed Socrates before we got from him how we use it as a growing, evolving species. We missed the humanness. The Buddhists went the other way. They were all about human experience and development, but lacked the logos. So they have, as we've discovered, 4 whole stages of enlightenment, which are entirely about the development or addressing the pathologos and becoming a midwife, which is a term that Socrates coined. So it's like we are in a stage of human development. We talk about learning to read, that there are these books have missing analogies, or they have missing parts within the book, and our job is to find the structure or infer the underlying structure and place the parts in the right order and find the missing part. Like this one, we wouldn't recognize that there's a missing hypothesis had we not ordered them properly within the structure. And then as we've been putting it all together in the last few episodes after finishing the book, we've been weaving the pieces together, like weaving the threads of a clothes analogy. I bailed. I was too lazy to do the clothes. Weaving the clothes analogy. Just say clothes analogy. That will do it. Weaving the pieces together. But what we're finding is the development of our human race up until this point also has pieces, disparate pieces at different parts. From like 5000 BC, we have the Odyssey and the Iliad from Homer. From 2000 BC, 2000? How's my dates? 200? 2000. God damn it. Hold. Death of Socrates date. 400 BC. Right, so from like time of Homer life. Oh, 8th century. It's not 8,000 years ago. Is it? Right, okay, so from 800 BC, we have Homer and the Iliad and the Odyssey, which we're getting a translation of. Teaser. From the 400 BC, we have Socrates, who had himself a conversation with his teacher Parmenides when his crew went on that pilgrimage to find the guy, getting these 9, missing the 10th. We have 2,000 years later, Dr. Pierre Grimes, a Buddhist guru and doctor of philosophy, the two together, rediscovering the art that Socrates didn't write about, which is also the art demonstrated by Homer, the art that deals with the pathologos. There we go. But again, without that pathologos and midwifery and dream analysis, we weren't able to, or Plato wasn't able to turn these stages of truth into humanness, truth and humanness together. And we have these 12th century closest thing to a map of the human development, but missing the piece of the logos. So we got this piece over here, this piece over here, this piece over here, this piece over here. And our job in this part of history is to weave them all together, which we're learning how to do by weaving together the book that we're reading. It's a win-win.
Win-win-win-win-win. It's a win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win.
Absolutely gooped.
You're gooped.
The woman, I'm too pure.
Woman, what's that one?
If you're experiencing a mental health episode, we don't want to have to see that.
I cut that one off. That was a new one. Emma says, a woman? I want to hear it now. I'm going to have to find the drop.
The woman? Ugh.
Emma, don't say that.
I ate a steak. I'm stupid. I'm drunk.
He's so far up his own ass.
I know, isn't he? All right. No, he's doing all right. Okay. So, they have what seems to be 4 activity stages after the glimpse that are entirely stages of development that we go through the philosophical midwifery process, mirroring the stages we go through in the hypotheses of Parmenides, but specifically related to our false beliefs and counterattacks to do with the image of the self, while the cognitive functions and the mastery of that through the dialectic is to do with the actual self. Only the Buddhists didn't know, but now you know.
Honestly, it makes sense.
And we make sense.
I love this guy.
Thank you.
Cool as a cuke.
That's what I say.
My head is quite large and filled with secrets.
Yes, and now our heads are quite large and filled with secrets. Riding free as air. So, you are riding. Oh, by the way, what's encountered, a mastery, like being able to ride the ox, make use of your mind the way it's supposed to be as a dialectician. But how do you function through it? What's your state of mind? Serene. It's not a blissful insight, it's a calmness. It's a freedom from pathologos, a freedom from problems. How does it, so what are we looking for? The dialectic. What's encountered? State of mind, serenity. What's encountered? The mastery of the art. How do you function with it? And its conclusion. How do we function with it? Well, you're not being drawn in by other people's bullshit. The Piss Brothers came in. Wasn't interesting to us. Bad bait, bro. Not interested. I mean, if you were willing to talk, we could ask you, what specific idea triggered you? Number 1, what level, where are you at that you were triggered by? Number 2, what level of interpretation are you responding negatively through? In other words, are you trying to reject it completely? Are you trying to offer your own beliefs? Are you trying to take a piece? Are you trying to keep the old and the new? Which of those 4 activities leading to non-interpretation? Now we can understand why you were mocking or threatening or ignoring whatever it was you were doing. You can recognize that thing as well. But also his head does not turn in the direction of your own temptations. Your old habits that say, hey, do something else. Don't be a midwife. Don't be a dialectic. Don't keep an open and curious mind about everything that unfolds and addressing it analogically in relation to self and self-logos. Don't think through the dialectic. Don't read these sorts of things. Those old temptations that say do something else instead don't tempt you anymore. You can do it. All of that work has led to you being able to do it. Congratulations, you're in the 4th stage of enlightenment. When you can be a midwife yourself. Try those, one may to upset him, he remains undisturbed. Boring, bollocks. Yeah, you're a MAGA chud, you say MAGA chud catchphrases. Easy. You're a religious person, you're going to repeat the religious catchphrases. You're a capitalist bootlicker, you're going to repeat capitalist bootlicking catchphrases. Libertarians or conservatives or whatever. Yep, boring. Not your purpose as a living being going through your incarnation stages, and not our purpose as an intelligent species going through its own development, moving towards its position within a greater cosmos. Not helping anyone. Boring. Fox News and all this fascist propaganda might have been interesting in the 90s when we were stupid, but we've got internet. We've had internet for too long. We see through it. We've got Trump. He's personified the entirety of the capitalist conservative and religious way of being. Donald Trump, we've got it all now, done. What do the billionaires do with all their wealth? Yeah, Epstein Island, got it now, done. What's this religious stuff? To scam people, sell Bibles, interpret it in a way that meets your own personal ignorance. Yeah, seen it. What's the conservative movement? They're setting up concentration camps, shooting people in the street, stealing all the wealth. Yeah, boring now. It's not part of our race, not part of evolution, not part of anything good or addressing what's bad. Boring. Use your mind. Do something different. Stop imitating your parents, Trump's KKK parents, for example, or that's where we get all of our beliefs, and start discovering your true nature. And if you can, and you're functioning through that, you are free as air. Notice the language. It's a freedom from something. It's a different language than a bright, fiery experience. It's a freedom. Free as air. Buoyantly. Floating. East comes home. You're going in the right direction. You're not there yet. Because, of course, as we've been seeing, the dialectic is our method for... Let's see it in the text. It's a banger line in the text, so we should see it. Let's bring it up. Like a cow that trips over, you will utterly fail to achieve the passage from the brilliant light of being to the good without the dialectic. Or Hermes, the supplier of philosophy that elevates souls akin to him. So now you are being like Hermes, the result of Apollo and Aphrodite, reading harmony and putting it all together in a beautiful, meaningful way. Aphrodite, Hermes, you're becoming like Hermes, elevating your soul, going home. See? By functioning as a dialectician, you're doing your intended function, you are having success, you are building that virtue, you're building those habits and patterns of virtue that keep you in your intended function at all times, putting you in a single-minded focus, which brings you into that flow state called justice, leads you home. The dialectic, which is nothing other than the use of so it's not a spiritual tradition, it's the spiritual tradition. Why? Because it's necessary. But why would it be necessary? Because all it is making use of your cognitive faculty of reflection and language properly. We can recognize that there is an intelligibility within reality, and we have it mapped out on the board. The dialectic is just using it properly. So it's not one philosophy among many, or one spiritual method or spiritual yoga among many. It's just thinking, just being a human. So no need for teams or funny. I mean, you can still have teams if you want, but so long as it's just one team. You can still have divisions of hierarchies within it, appealing to people who are attracted to Nazism and fascism. But the stages of development will be things you move through. In other words, this whole, you can't be greater than Jesus, that's heresy. You can't be greater than Trump, that's un-American. No, you can be, and you should be encouraged to be. Because the hierarchical stages or membership within the team are to facilitate everyone becoming like the captain. Which is, by the way, LeBron James' basketball arc. LeBron James was an exceptional athlete and had a lot of success until he realized he had to make his teammates like him. That's true providence. Our dream maker makes us like him when we pay attention. We try and become like Socrates by seeing the intelligibility behind his thinking and his dialogue style. Method. So you can still have stages of development, and we can all wear funny hats if you want to. But everyone's included. And it's not about hate and division and exploitation. It's about inclusion, understanding, genuine care, or providence. So, sound good? Does it sound good, Emma?
Hubba hubba. I just want more testosterone to human body ratio, and I'll finally be satisfied.
Emma. Oh, Emma.
I'm just asking for some gooner men.
Some gooner men.
Be a reasonable gooner.
So long as she's being a reasonable gooner, we're okay with it, right?
Jesus is gonna come down, wipe this place out. Who cares?
Come on. Don't be so downhearted. So back to the book. So the insights are to do with a freedom from problem, but also being able to providentially benefit other people. People who hear my melody join me, and wherever he goes, a fresh breeze comes, creates a fresh breeze, while in his heart a profound tranquility prevails. Which, as we read earlier in the text, that this kind of way of being is a kind of foreshadowing of a higher. Now, I forget the section. Maybe it's tranquility. Let me have a look. Tranquil? No. Foreshadow? Oh yeah, it's got foreshadow. Let's have a look at that. Socrates saying, when I first heard music, speaking of music, here was a beauty that I realized emerged from a structure that exhibits principles of harmony, as we've been writing on the board, and from some higher and truly existing order, the logos, and intelligibility. It may be dimly perceived, but nonetheless, it was there to be participated in. It was impossible to carry the music away, yet its beauty lingered on long after the last string was played. I knew then that since there is a beautiful music, that beauty must foreshadow an intelligence to cultivate. There must be two intelligent forces, I reasoned, one glimpse through music and another more profound waiting to be discovered. Nice, but not what we're after. I can't remember the context of the passage to be able to find it, but it was something to do with there is a state that even is a shadow or foreshadows the possibility of an even higher state. Let's just try shadow. Now, the word shadow is used often to talk about our beliefs. We said vice is a image of virtue or shadow. Beliefs are a shadow. Principles of midwifery are like a shadow, as it were, of the intelligible principles, and it is the avenue through which further insight into this higher source can become available to us. Describing these four enlightenment stages we've been looking at. Along the way, there is a learning of the language of the dream maker. Incorporating that as well. It is a kind of reflection that is present both in our midwifery and dreams that naturally turns back 180 upon itself, back upon that from which it derived its own existence. Clearly, this similar dynamic that midwifery reflects in imitation of the reversion upon that which we have derived the source of our very existence. So this first and final cause, as we have on the board, the goal of the above this yellow line, the self, the first cause, the final cause, our return to that is mirrored in these oxherding pictures, our self-reflection through midwifery and dream analysis. So we're becoming like reality. We're aligning ourselves with the patterns of reality, justice, true order. there's another part where it says, here we go. I think this is it. Oh, this is the section. Okay, this is relevant to where we are. In philosophical midwifery, for a dream to be able to be uniquely meaningful to each soul, it must have an image of the self that the dreamer can identify with. So what does that mean? This pathologos image of the self above this line of our goal, what we're after, the state of self, the art of all arts, and all that, our highest functioning, true seeing. The dream maker must have. So we were right to include these negative hypotheses because a mastery of the pathologos image is used by the dream maker. This is the analogy. I need to increase that yellow line. We're becoming too smart. We're adding too many things. Oh my goodness. Let me just bring this all down a little bit. And then delete. Wow, not everything, just a line. Look how smart we are. See? That whole table. Our level of intelligence is directly proportional to how long this table is. We are so smart. Let's draw a line. Goal separated from the activity causes. There we go. These are the 4 activity causes leading to our goal, which is complete, at rest, the state we're after. So there must be an image, understanding of the image of the pathologos of self, pathologos image of self, needed, that is within true seeing, for the ultimate activity of the dream maker, using an art beyond divination, the highest kind of dream, 5th dimensional intelligence, our final cause, etc. So we're above this line. That's what we're after. It's our question. What is that self? What is that? That's the knowing of the self we're after. There must be an image of the self that's presented in your dream to the dreamer that the dreamer identifies with. Ever notice you never get bored of your dreams? You might watch a Tom Cruise movie and go, I don't relate to this Tom Cruise guy. I'm not watching it anymore. Never happens in your dreams, does it? It must have a drama that is an analog use of analogy with the unsuspected problem the dreamer is facing in his present world. Since the solution of one's unsuspected problem must be central to one's spiritual life. Yes, and we know how central. It's literally the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th enlightenment stages. The source of the perfection of the soul lies in the discovery of its own higher reason for existing. So the questions we've been asking about our individual purpose of reincarnation and bringing in with us a way of interpreting leading to the unique pathologos. 2 children can experience the same scene and walk away with a different interpretation, meaning we carry something with us from our previous reincarnations, but also we pick a reincarnation, a time in history, a family, a culture from which we can develop or learn that reflection of that false image of self that we're here to address, meaning a reason for the human life, the meaning of life. Every soul is meaningful, therefore, every person is meaningful. We should be creating the conditions for that dignity of all human life to participate in this activity universally, not just for the billionaire people who don't do this anyway. But also, we've been reflecting on the reason for our species to exist within a greater whole. And also, as a musician, music to exist. And we've been talking about that, how it can get people interested in the harmony and beauty of reality that might reflect an even higher order. This reason springs from an intelligence that it also shares in. Oh, for us to ask these questions, we must be sharing in an intelligence that can wonder about such things and seek such things. For it reverts upon itself at the very moment that it opens a more profound state of mind. There's our 3rd ox-herding picture glimpse, called the twilight of the experience of the intelligence. Which makes us wonder if the glimpse begins the process and we go through some activity, there must be a reason or a resulting goal from the activity. The very way it proceeds in this process of dialogue. Imagine if we listen to the Piss brothers who came into the chat. No one's watching you, you shouldn't do it. Imagine if we actually gave a shit about the stupid opinions of ignorant people. We wouldn't have all these wonderful insights. Should we shed a tear for them who are missing out on it because of their addiction to their childish ways? Maybe. Only a small one. This very way it proceeds in this process of dialogue is the exercise of the cognitive faculty we call understanding. In the activities, we are engaging and cultivating understanding. From being ignorant and open, starting to notice the patterns and having some success, to becoming a mastery of understanding and reflecting on the model of pure understanding, or freedom to engage in pure understanding. It's the culmination of understanding. The culmination, the openness, that is the shadow of the openness and freedom of a clear and pure mind functioning. Now, this is interesting. It's suggesting that after our glimpse, third ox, we go through this midwifery and dream analysis process, culminating in a return to that glimpse, having purified what gets in the way, which should be the goal, right? The fifth member of this thing is the goal. So the eighth ox-herding picture should be the goal? No. It's a shadow of the openness and freedom of a clear and pure mind functioning. So our return, our glimpse in the third ox, the first stage of enlightenment, the development of midwifery and dream analysis to purify what's different from it, and the resulting return is itself a shadow of something higher. Thank goodness we have the 9th and 10th ox-herding picture. This philosophical way of proceeding highlights in its very mode of existing that in turning about, which is the ousia movement, it reverts upon the intelligence. Let me just fix my cam a bit. The intelligence, it reverts upon the intelligence. So here we are reverting on intelligence, in which we can recognize that was the third ox-herding picture, and we are anticipating the 8th. It's reverting upon intelligence. This way of understanding unites into a oneness, and in doing so, it returns to its natural source, same language used through the ox-herding pictures, the intelligence. As a result, what was before a scattered multiplicity, the many paths of the first ox-herding picture, without coherence and integrity, the first ox-herding picture, ignorance, becomes a set of ideas linked together with an inner coherence that to grasp requires the intellect to be put into play. Have we seen anywhere that you can think of a set of ideas that are themselves in their own sets that can be put together and grasped? Have we therefore, in creating this table, been engaging the intelligence? Are we therefore moving through the ox-herding pictures, returning to the source of pure intelligence by participating in it in this harmonious way? Good for us.
Jester goon maxed.
Are we Jester goon maxing?
If you don't know, now you know.
Are you now knowing?
That one's perfect and exactly the case.
It is. The moment of insight reveals its mode of existence and has a higher and more profound mode of existence, and since it lacks any image of oneself, we can say that it ushers in a dawning realization that the soul is not subject to time. So that glimpse in that first enlightenment stage, the third ox sitting picture, glimpsing the ox, realize, oh my goodness, this is just the source. There's no image of myself here. And this is far more real and true, and the source, giving rise to those activity stages. These kinds of experiences prepare the mind for a more penetrating insight into our mode of existence, into its more profound way of functioning. Interesting. The art we're after, the level of intelligence and functioning we're after, and that it has a power capable of reaching into what is most divine, the art of divination. This activity the soul experiences is in time, but in these states of mind, it steps out of that temporal passing phase of being and enters into the timelessness of reality. So this is why it can be said that the soul's activity is in time, as its existence is timeless. So those stages of enlightenment we mapped as the activity phases, and in fact all of these activities under that line happen in time, while our state of mind is timeless or eternal. We could conclude that since it reverts upon itself in this activity, and since it is also recursive in respect to its existence, turns upon itself. Recursive is an interesting word. Let's find the word recursive so I can define it better. Recursive meaning.
Recursive.
A process, rule, or definition that is applied repeatedly and referring back to itself in similar instances of the same problem. All right. We've seen a repeating pattern returning upon itself in each of those sets on our table. Doing and saying the same thing several times in order to produce a particular result. As above, so below, we could say. It's self-constituted, so it reverts upon itself and it uses itself, reverting upon itself. So it's recursive in that it returns upon itself and uses itself as the model that it recursively reflects. This idea of being self-constituted means all its functions, its mode of being, and its power and activity are within itself. So it makes sense that all of these stages of enlightenment we're looking at are all a purification or separating away the clouds. It's all within us. We are the self, so of course we have all of this. It's a matter of removing what's false and rediscovering what's there to be seen. As well as asking that question, why go through that process? If it's all from self and returning to self, why go through that? Is there any additional benefit that we could hypothesize about existence itself that we gain from having gone through this activity, gaining not only participating in time, where we can develop understanding by going through these stages of ignorance? Are we benefited by returning to the state of self with understanding? And with an understanding of what the self isn't, or its reflection, its shadow, the pathologos, and with an art in our back pocket. Otherwise, why go through suffering and ignorance? Interesting. So we are reawakening or awakening a potential level of understanding and art to be discovered within the self, only to be developed and gained through the activity of understanding by participating in time involving the duads, whole, part, same, other, wisdom, ignorance. So going through wisdom and ignorance, providing an understanding of the self we're returning to, an understanding of its copy or image, the pathologos, the source of ignorance, and a mastery of an art along the way. That's the big question. That's the main one. If oneself, why the many? Why the return? Why the suffering? Why do we have to go through it as humans? So its functions, mode of being, and power and activity are all within itself as it stands independent of everything else, so we can say it's self-constituted. In dream analysis sessions, those present gain the insight that we can all share in being witnesses to understanding another's problem. In the dream analysis session, those present gain the insight that we can all share in being witnesses to understanding another's problem. The sharing of a personal problem with others is evidence of this kind of cognitive activity that brings a kinship and benefit with and to each other's minds. Now that's important. Empathy is a big issue. Through this greatest possible human activity of dream analysis, we can gain an empathy by seeing the sameness of all minds and problems that we are here to face. It's not they are different and therefore they're bad and scary. That's the caveman primitive pathologos problem. It's recognizing a kinship and sameness within minds and the cognitive activity we're here to engage in. So this is the greatest activity for reawakening empathy. So that was what I was after. The fact that there is a foreshadowing of a greater intelligence that we can awaken. Experienced in this oxiding picture. So, this serene, undisturbed, while functioning in this beneficial, providential way, is even a shadow of a higher state of being we can wonder about, as Socrates is describing as the midwife or dream dialectician. So, sixth oxiding picture, fourth stage of enlightenment, being a midwife in a certain state of mind which is serene and not attached to the drama, while being able to providentially affect people. So it's a kind of self-contained state of being, a state of mind, and functioning that itself foreshadows an even higher possible state of mind with an even higher kind of participation in a, what was the word? Pure and clear mind. So that's an interesting thing here. And this self-contained nature is also in this oxiding picture. This ox requires not a blade of grass. Self-constituted, self-contained. So we saw if that's the instrumental cause within the activity sets, then that midwife riding that ox should be reflecting on the blueprints cause, the paradigmatic cause. So what's the model that the midwife in Buddhism looks at? Let's read it. The bull transcended, astride the ox I reach home. There's an end to this process of midwifery we've been going through in this activity and development of understanding and the art of dream analysis. The ox, I reach home, I am serene. The ox can rest. The ox too can rest. The dawn has come. In blissful repose within my thatched dwelling, I have abandoned the whip and rope. What does that mean? In the Dharma, there is no two-ness. The Dharma means, Dharma is a fancy word for teaching. So what you're teaching is no different from what you're doing. So everything we've been learning about the freedom of problems in midwifery and our ideal functioning from that free state to benefit ourselves and others isn't different from our demonstration. There's no two-ness between definition and demonstration in the teaching or Dharma. The ox is his primal nature. This he has now recognized. The trap is no longer needed when a rabbit has been caught. A net becomes useless when a fish has been snared. Like gold that has been freed from dross. So this insight into our peak state of mind You have removed your problematic way of being that's inconsistent with that by addressing your pathologos through midwifery and dream analysis. Like the moon which has broken through the clouds. That's what we just said, right? Separating of the clouds. 4 stages of enlightenment for that. Removing what's false. One ray of luminous light shines eternally. Only on the ox was he able to return home. See, only. There's not many ways. There's just one method. So, hooray. No need for fighting between opinions or holy wars. But lo, the ox is not vanished. And alone and serene sits the man. The red sky rides high in the sky. And as he dreams on placidly, there's still some more work to go. Yonder, beneath the thatched roof, his idle whip and idle rope are lying. Freedom from pathologos. Now we are saying that would be therefore the model of the free from delusional man that is referenced in our midwifery. But as we've been seeing, all of these 4s are activity states for where's our causes? Our first and final cause, Billy living in the house. So let's see what happens once we go through these stages in our return back to that third ox herding picture glimpse of pure mind. Having purified what was false. Both bull and self transcended. Whip, rope, person, and ox. So midwifery, dream analysis, you as an individual soul, and the mind all merge in no thing, non-physical experience of mind. This heaven is so vast, no message can stain it. How may a snowflake exist in a raging fire? The last line should anticipate the future. Here are the footprints of the ancients, the ancestors. Both ox and self-forgotten. So notice the picture, just a circle. Oneness. The thing we glimpsed as the source, we are now returning to in a more full way, having purified ourselves from any image of self that we see through our behaviors that are not aligned with it. In other words, all of the problems and conflicts we face are completely based on the extent to which our image of self and state of being is different from the true nature of mind and its way of being. All delusive feelings, ox and self-forgotten, have perished, and ideas of holiness have too vanished. Delusive feelings, pathologos problems. He lingers not in the state of, well, I'm so good, my image of myself is a Buddha. And he passes quickly on to the stages of, well, I am so good, I've purged myself of my identification with being Buddha. I have now purged myself of the proud feeling of I am not Buddha. Even the 1,000 eyes of 500 Buddhas and patriarchs can discern in him no specific quality. If hundreds of birds were now to strew flowers about his room, and we looked at the other translations for this because this one doesn't quite fit. The other translations have him saying he would find no meaning in that. Neither would he be ashamed. So even if 1,000 birds strews flowers about his rooms, he wouldn't feel, I am so good, or, oh, I'm so bad for being. Neither of those. It's not meaningful, really. So he would not but feel ashamed is a mistranslation, I think strongly. And we have looked at those. Let's have a quick reminder of the 8th ox herding poem. Let's bring up a few. that don't require me to pay subscriptions. Okay. Oh, we don't want the poem. We want the description. That's fine. So here we go. Okay, we don't want that. We want the birds. 8 ox herding picture. Description. Birds. You want the birds. A holiness before which birds offer flowers is but a farce. Right, so he's not feeling ashamed with birds dropping flowers. He's saying, well, I would see it as a farce if it's a holiness that I take about the flowers. Another translation here. Oh, that's an interpretation. We want the real thing. Nope. I want to pay money for it though. That's both oxen self-forgotten. Let's search for birds. B-I-R-D. Even if a myriad of birds brought you flowers, it would be a disgrace. That's funny. Disgrace. You disgraceful birds, take your flowers away. You are a disgrace. Different from feeling ashamed, right? Should we do one more? Let's search for birds again. No, not in that one. Let's find another one. No, don't download. Oh my goodness, downloaded something. All right, let's have a look at this one. A holiness before which birds offer flowers is but a farce. Yep. This one. Let's find bird again. If 100 birds strew flowers in my path, if hundreds of birds strew my path with flowers, such praise would be meaningless. So this is the only translation that has the idea of feeling ashamed. It's just a farce or meaningless, or to take pride in that would be a farce. Or one particular guy says that these birds are being a disgrace. Imagine saying that to a cute little bird. A little bird, oh, it's a flower for you. You are a disgrace. Flower for me.
Dumbass.
You dumbass bird.
Disgusting. I'm so disgusted.
It's disgusting.
Hey, you can't say that to her. You show her some respect.
Exactly. Respect the little birdie. The whip, rope, and ox alike belong to emptiness. Now, we have a different kind of care for language, so we wouldn't use the word emptiness, but empty of your image of self. Over a vast and infinite azure sky, no concept of any sort can reach it. In other words, this is a pure experience of mind, can't be an object of belief. We've seen time and time again that beliefs are the cause of human problems and ignorance, suffering, death, and destruction. But also, it fundamentally can't reach your ideal state of mind because it is not a concept. No concept of any sort can reach it. That also fits with what we've been seeing as the fourth dimensional intelligent experience. So, first dimensional cabbages have sensation, second dimensional cows have sensation and perception, third dimensional humans have sensation, perception, and concepts. Fourth dimensional intuitive intelligence is a cognitive function beyond concepts required to grasp this eighth ox herding picture or the sixth stage of enlightenment. Also recognized as knowingness, or the return to the second hypothesis. The model of reality or source. Ousia, pure ousia, mind knowing itself completely, where there is it's all oneness. There's no different image of yourself other than this experience. No image at all, but no contrast with this experience. Pure being. The art of divination. insight, intuitive intelligence. Therefore, this third ox-herding picture glimpse, resulting in the 4 stages of activities and return to that, is still only the penultimate. You've gone through 6 including the glimpse, 6 stages of enlightenment in the cultivation and perfection of the first of 2 categories of enlightenment. This is a return to oneness, where ox, whip, rope, and man all come together. Or the second hypothesis, divination. And good to know, because what we didn't see when we had our first experience of it as source, by going through these 4 next stages of enlightenment, having developed understanding, which is what? The learning to see and follow the logos. Not only do we return to this state, first and final cause state, having aligned ourselves to it and having removed our problems. This is the thing that anime gurus don't do. So we have the pervy sage, or the drunken master, or the lecherous guru, or the tsunade, the gambling. This is the archetype, not just in anime, but in Eastern spirituality. Even in Western spirituality. Problems with the clergy. We've removed our problems, we've freed ourselves from our problems, and we've aligned ourselves to that, but also, so what's our big question? If everything is from self, why go through all this evolution to return to self? We return to it aligned with self, but also with a mastery of understanding that can only happen in the physical world of time. Whatever is mind and self, the source and its source, the ultimate and penultimate, it's beyond time. Or for mind, the whole of all time as a oneness. By going through this physical incarnation, we can learn to participate in understanding. So what does that mean? When we return to that same state, we can recognize something we might not have seen the first time. What's that? The footprints of the ancestors. There is a logos path that we can go through beyond this gateway. What was the problem with Jesus? He's only in the first stage of enlightenment, third ox-herding picture, glimpse. He didn't go through the struggle. In fact, his life was a message to him to say, catch the ox. Here are all these patterns leading to your crucifixion for treason by saying you're the king of the Jews and the next Elijah. Didn't pay attention. He didn't grow up in a Hellenic tradition. He wasn't surrounded by Hellenic philosophers, true philosophers, that could have encouraged him. It took him meeting Socrates in heaven to have this dialogue for him to realize maybe he's got a problem. Although he may not recognize it as a problem. This text gave us the understanding. So, second ox-herding picture, that would be for you to, in your sequel, use this understanding to see Jesus recognize, hang on a second, because of what's the sequel? Soc and Jesus, a dream talk in heaven, recognize that the disaster of his life, there's no magic from the dead that was added 200 years later. There's no Easter or resurrection. That's bollocks. All scholars agree on that. I have an unhealthy tendency I have to go through. So in other words, you can outline these next 1, 2, 3, 4 stages of enlightenment as the activity causes that Jesus can go through to recognize he's got a problem when he was, at the end of the text, when he was being a dick to Socrates, attacking him, trying to take over the conversation, saying we're always going to be at odds. It's a problem of beliefs. You're not the right tribe. I'm the right tribe. You're not the right tribe. I'm the chosen people. Fuck you. All that garbage he got triggered into, that he wasn't in that state of mind for the majority of the talk. But when encouraged to go beyond that first stage of enlightenment, goes through the stages of interpretation, you can represent what you've learned about these stages of interpretation that everyone goes through, taking a piece. You might want, I mean, it wasn't in the book, but we could include, if you wanted to, some mocking and ignoring and threatening, if you want to provide in your dialogue these material for people who want to pay attention to see. But in going through those rejections and interpretations, have Jesus going through these ox-herding pictures of addressing his problem and maybe even becoming a midwife himself and maybe freeing himself from that problem and returning to what he had on that mount, that the story of the mount, his glimpse on the mount. And your sequel might conclude with Jesus going back to that experience, and instead of making sense of it with his beliefs, this is Elijah. I'm going to set up a tabernacle for Elijah and Abraham. Bollocks. He can use his development of understanding that he has mastered in going through this process of addressing human problems, that it takes a glimpse or a love of understanding for a good person to wake up to. He might return to that experience, the eighth ox-herding picture, and recognize, oh my goodness, what I thought was it isn't it. I recognize footprints. Meaning there's a state of enlightenment beyond even that stage. And Socrates can turn around at the end of that dialogue and say, not only is there a state of enlightenment beyond that experience, let's reflect on the process you've gone through. You've in fact gone through 1, 2, 3, 4 stages of enlightenment yourself in the activity facilitating that return. By the way, were you like that in your lifetime? And Jesus will say, no, I wasn't. So not only is there an enlightenment state beyond that glimpse, there are 4 that you've gone through. And every step of the way, maybe you can have chapters, who knows? You've leveled up. And every step of the way, you've gone through those same 5 levels of interpretation. And when you got stuck in any one of them, you went through those 5 kinds of ignoring, mocking, threatening, trying to kick me out of the conversation, or threatening to get me eaten by fish. There's a dialogue called the Meno, where Socrates, is it the Meno or the Meno, where Socrates challenges Meno, and he says, "Whoa, you better not leave this country. People like you in Athens, but they'll kill you otherwhere." So it's a veiled threat of murder. So you can include all that. As Jesus returns to what started off this whole process in a more full and complete way, purified from his problems and with understanding. Now, if you're in that illuminous, blissful state, you're not going to be able to facilitate a dream talk or ride the ox or function through it. Notice, all of these stages aren't a blissful, profound experience like the third, but what they do have that the third doesn't have is activity. These are activities. You can do stuff, you can develop, this is in time. This is the enlightenment stages that a human being goes through in time, whereas the first glimpse is out of time. That's the trade-off. We want an enlightened state without a trade-off. Can we have an ultimate state of mind and functioning? So thankfully, these questions about the third and eighth ox herding picture are not related to this giant map we've been building. Because this is all about returning to divination or knowingness. Remember, there are two stages of enlightenment, or two enlightenment kinds of experience: the bliss of knowing and the state of self, the ultimate. So all of these goal things that we've been putting together, which would all be ways of understanding the self that is our goal, that for the sake of which, or the first and the final cause, doesn't apply, but the structure applies. You start with a glimpse. Because while these are about truth, this is about the ox herding pictures are about the human or stages of growth within it, the enlightenment process. So it has shown us the model from a glimpse to 4 activity stages to its return in a higher way. And what marks the higher way seems to be a more full participation in it by removing what's false, and a functioning. And what was the functioning? To be able to see the footprints of the ancient patriarchs. And how does it relate to the text that we've been reading, the book that we've been reading? To walk through something, another metaphor for walking through something is to go through a gateway. Gate. Surrogate mother, Lord Phoenix. Okay, so this is Achilles. Achilles went through these stages of enlightenment because he has to, he addressed his surrogate mother, Lord Phoenix, uncovering his false way of being and freeing himself from the bonds to become the sage he became. So Achilles went through this process. So it's doable. And Achilles represents the worst kind of person. So even the worst can become a sage. So we can see Achilles went through those stages of enlightenment that Jesus failed to do. So if we do read the Iliad together, we can look for those stages of enlightenment and say, oh, that's the third ox, that's the fourth ox, that's the fifth ox. As we see Achilles go through it. And now, maybe we can read the Odyssey, which is still in the process of being translated. The first time an accurate translation is going to come to light, so that's exciting. Maybe we can look for different characters like Penelope and Odysseus and see if we can recognize their stages of enlightenment as well. Surrogate. Surrogate mother realized that he's been playing out something he did not know he knew. So that's why it requires a glimpse sometimes. Now, if you're clever, you don't wait for the glimpse, get into it straight away, jump straight into the fourth ox herding picture and get into work doing dream analysis. Addressing the fundamental ignorance of your soul. And if you address it, you can, after this realization, you can be in a staggeringly mindful state, becoming the model of the great hero. This is the hero's journey, the archetype. For us, the Hellenes and Achilles, by using the mind to free mind of his folly, became the model of reversing one's errors and faults. This ideal shaped the soul and spirit of the Hellenes into a mindful people that puts all others to shame. So in principle, all other ways of being, other than this, the Hellenic, is shameful. Do better. This, and it's fun, and you win.
Win.
Yeah, it's win.
It's a win.
Yes. Now we're looking for gateway. It's not in the book. What's another word for gateway? I don't know. What's another word for gate? Go through the gate. Let's just say through. This is going to be through. Oh my goodness. Oh, this is going to be hard. Let's go backwards looking for through. Through the study of dreams. Let's make it smaller so I'm not cutting out through. Through history, through the logos. Through these divisions, through words. I'm sure there's something like gateway, or can't think of another metaphor. Through dreams, no. Through negatives, you can understand the self. Through the dialectic, you can... Know the mind through the mind is to realize its source. Okay. Well, there was that utterly fail thing. Passage. Okay, let's look at the word passage. Through the use of dialectic. So, what started as a glimpse became a mastery of the dialectic, riding the ox, and using that dialectic to free yourself from your false image of self, allowing you to passage from the brilliant light of being to the good itself. Meaning, if the return to that glimpse in the 8th ox-herding picture as a full oneness with understanding allows you to recognize footprints through to a greater state. So one working hypothesis of why we return to the self through everything we experience might be there might be something about self you hadn't recognized until you'd gone through the process of understanding, which is perfected through the art of midwifery by addressing what isn't the self. Gaining a mastery of logos, because in addressing what isn't, you have to find out what it isn't, looking at its shadow, with reference to what it is, gaining an understanding of the truth of self and its creation mind, and the opposite. Seeing the dangers of leaving the self-logos. So there might be a significance in returning to the self with understanding in your back pocket and the art of dialectic in your back pocket. Able to see the inherent intelligibility of self that you couldn't have experienced without going through being an other than self. How do you be other than self? You're the self. You can't be other than self. So how can you reflect back at yourself? You can think that you are other than self by being associated with a false image of self, but wouldn't that be disastrous? Yep. But it will give you the opportunity to reflect on the self from a false idea of being other than self, while at the same time addressing that false idea of self to purify you from that ignorance, returning to the self with an understanding and an art in your back pocket. And that's what we see at the end of the 8th ox-herding picture, the footprints. How did it start? Let's look at passage. Is there another passage? Here we go. For Plato, he mentions two profoundly exalted states, Plato does, the good itself and the luminous light of being, which is also called the idea of the good. He offers no insight into the passageway from one to the other. So by recognizing these different ox-herding pictures within the dialectic structure of activity and goal, we have learnt the passageway. While Plato talked about the 3rd ox, by going through the midwifery and dream analysis process that Plato lacked, we've recognized higher enlightenment states, which is also acknowledged within Zen Buddhism, allowing a passageway from the idea of good or luminous light of being to the good self, which is to return to it with understanding and art in your back pocket so you can recognize the footprints through that passageway. Plato describes the way to gain the vision of beauty, so Plato might be a start into the glimpse. So that's good that we have the 2nd ox-herding picture reading these books. Passageway into the glimpse, the 3rd, then we can chuck the ox-herding pictures on after Plato. And then it stresses the need to emerge from that state to seek the kind of human excellence that would make one immortal and a friend of the gods. So the symposium, which provides a method to have that glimpse, ends with him saying, but there's still more to be done. I just can't write about it. He stops there, didn't he? Surely sharing the meaning of these things could have benefited some. Did our commentators reach their own limits and could say no more than they did? So Plato reached his limit, but we've gone through that in the next 5 stages. Where else we have passage? Passageway to the divine. Yeah, I think yeah. All right, so that's the idea. And we're seeing that in the 8th. So, while it's not the ultimate, it does give us some insight as to why there are stages of development. Why it doesn't just end with a glimpse. And of course, we see many people, whether they be crazy people who start their cults, and you can find crazy YouTube documentaries about them, or whether they be Jesus himself, who have that glimpse and they don't go through the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th oxiding stages of enlightenment to develop that understanding and art and free yourself from your problems. We have many tales like Jesus and others like him that are cautionary tales. The problems you will face if you don't go through these next enlightenment stages. So in other words, as a principle of the Hellenic man or true philosophy, when you reach enlightenment, keep going. When you reach enlightenment, keep going.
Funny, cool, and accents.
I have a sickness for the thickness. Spit on me.
Hey, calm down, Emma.
Damn, you really are a gooner.
You are a gooner, Emma.
Goon.
So, as a principle, if you reach enlightenment, keep going. And now we have a map for those stages where you keep going through. And we have an idea of that principle. Why, if all of these first causes are also the final cause, what's the process? Having gone through the process, there might be some significance of returning to the source with understanding and art in our pockets. And we can see that demonstrated in the 8th oxiding picture. Meaning, the next 2 oxiding pictures should be about that other state of enlightenment, the self, not mind, not the idea of the good, the brilliant luminosity of being, but the good itself, or the good self, or oneself, or true self. And we can see if we can find, we'll do this next time, find what the 9th and 10th oxiding pictures, there should be 5, shouldn't there? Or 6, the first glimpse, 4 activities and a return. Hey, welcome to the new follower. To you we say,
I'm eating the testicles of this bull,
oh my goodness.
and I'm eating it raw.
No, we don't. We don't say that. We don't say that. Don't eat it. Don't eat bull testicles.
I don't want to eat a monkey.
And Joe Rogan also says, don't eat a monkey. So, but welcome and thank you for joining us here. So, what were we saying? Right, next time. So, there should be 5 stages, right? Like the 3rd ox, the glimpse, 4 activity stages reflecting everything in reality has a first cause, 4 activities, and then a return. Be they kinds of dreams, be they the art of dream analysis, be they levels of intelligence we go through. So there should be that awakening of the intuitive intelligence where our imagination and understanding come together. That's the 8th oxiding picture. What starts as a glimpse of intuitive intelligence in the 3rd oxiding picture, we have to address all of our human concepts derived from our perceptions of our physical sensations, our image thinking that gave rise to our belief-based concepts. We had to address all of those, learning the art of dialectic, the art of midwifery, the art of dream analysis, purifying our false beliefs, but we can therefore gain a deeper understanding into what that eighth ox herding picture is. It isn't just a return to that glimpse or imagination or ousia or experience brought together with understanding, so that even in that profound state, you can recognize or ask questions with your art or recognize with your understanding the footsteps, the inherent logos of that profound experience that was at first a overwhelming, or no, I won't use the word overwhelming, profound, luminous, challenging, intense experience. Hey, it's no longer challenging and intense because it's not different from you. All the bad trip elements of it, or the difficulty, was just to do with you thinking you're a small bean and bad noodle from childhood, because that's what it means to be human, to get those false concepts when our parents play God priest of the house, as they will do. So what's the significance of going through those enlightenment experiences? Developing the fourth dimensional intuitive intelligence, which aligns with what Socrates says, because he said you will only gain that with a kinship with dreams while you apply your philosophy, dialectic, to your dreams, and vice versa. Use your dreams to help gain insight in your development of philosophy or reading these books. Thumbs up. Let's see it in the book, so you know I'm not just spitting bars. Oh, it was right here. Kinship. Kinship with dreams. Well, hang on a second. It's important within my philosophy because the idea of understanding is seeing a kinship between logos and nous. That's what we're looking for. Logos, the activity of understanding that we developed, happened as a result of nous, but was to return to nous and see that there is an inherent nous is the Greek word for knowingness, or ousia. The logos is in there, but it took those subsequent enlightenment stages to return to it, to recognize the logos in it, or the footprints of the ancients. Kinship with dreams we're after. Here you go. I follow those, says Socrates, of a kinship with dreams, practice their philosophy, the continuous study of dreams. Imagination becomes conjoined with profound understanding. That sounds like the description of the eighth ox herding picture, the sixth level of enlightenment, that awakens the divine character. There you go, all that work you've been going through with taming the ox, separating the clouds. A ray of light comes through, follow that light into luminosity. That's the divine character awakening an intuitive intelligence, the eye of the soul. And by the way, there's a higher source that uses that called God. That might be the dream maker, because it's from God that the knowledge of dreams comes. Well, there you go. Surely not. Maybe? Is God talking to you every time you dream? What would that mean? Uh-oh. Dreams are an essential part of the art of divination. Therefore, all of mankind could be visited by pure intelligences and by God. Holy fuck, could God be talking to you in your dreams? Is that the state of being that we're seeking? Ultimately, it does fit with our everything above this line. The state of self. A mastery of dialectic beyond its activity, cognitive state of self, a mastery of the pathologos, true seeing without interpretation, sacrificing the images of self, The first and final cause, Billy living in a house. The ultimate activity, the dream maker, an art beyond divination, highest kind of dream, and fifth dimensional intelligence beyond intuitive intelligence or divination. And we need to move those over. So these stages of enlightenment that we've come to understand thanks to this banger of a book that might be the greatest book ever written. You could make a strong case for that, and I would agree with you. Right, we're seeing that we can participate in both divination or intelligence and God. So if it's the first and final cause, it is the highest concept of God. So God's talking to you in your dreams. Holy shit. Worth paying attention to your dreams? Well, we've seen a million reasons already today why it's worth paying attention to your dreams, but there's one more for the list. Dreams come to us all and reveal a personal knowledge about our struggles. So there's that pathologos thing. It knows your pathologos. Gives you an image of yourself that you relate to. So again, knows your pathologos image. And it reveals knowledge you desperately need to know. And by the way, you don't interpret them. Not dream interpretation, it's dialectic. Because it's the dialectic that it becomes visible, which is, here we go, which is the kind of reflection we both know is the passageway to the divine. So in going through these enlightenment stages 4 through 7, we are learning the dialectic, which is the passageway to the divine, meaning this 8th ox herding picture, the oneness, we can say, hey, why just return to the same? Why don't we just stay in the glimpse? Because the development of the understanding and gaining a kinship with your dreams and perfecting this, participating in the art of divination allows you to return to that thing and also see it as a passageway. Recognize with understanding there is a logos in there, a kinship between nous and logos. Ousia and logos come together. And see that there must be a higher cause even to that. What's that kind of union with ousia or nous or imagination or experience and logos or understanding? What's that called? In the book. In the continuous study of dreams, imagination becomes conjoined with a profound understanding. There it is. That's awakening your divine character, through which intuitive intelligence is approached and experienced. So, in asking what are the different levels of intelligence that animals and cabbages and caterpillars have, and cows, and we humans, we recognize that there is first dimensional intelligence, sensation of cabbages, second dimensional intelligence, sensation and perception of cows, third dimensional intelligence, sensation, perception and concepts of humans, and now we've come to see the fourth dimensional intelligence, that of intuitive intelligence. That starts with a glimpse, requires 4 stages of activity like all of these sets, and results in ultimately a union of the imagination of that experience and understanding together, which allows you to function with it. What is Billy doing in his house? He's functioning in his house. What started as an idea to build a house as the first cause went through the blueprints, hiring builders, making sure they have the skill of building and buying some bricks, results in a return to that idea, but Billy can function in that house now. He can live a life, he can have a family, he can get a couple of cats even if he's lucky. What's the functioning we get in our return to pure intelligence? Fourth dimensional intuitive intelligence and the ability to go to recognize that there is a logos within it which must have its cause, opening us up for a stage beyond knowing, which is a stage beyond Taoism. That's the last stage for Taoism. And of course, Jesus had it as a glimpse in the third and didn't do that work. So there's a similarity between the two of them. They both lacked logos. They both lacked those next stages of enlightenment. But we have Zen Buddhism, and we have this book from Socrates, the greatest book perhaps ever written. You keep using the word perhaps. When I say perhaps, I mean could be top 3. You can make a case that the Parmenides is up there, and you can make a case that the Orange Book for midwifery, an understanding of midwifery completely, is up there. Yeah. It's like, is LeBron the greatest basketball player or Michael Jordan? They're both in the top 2. How about that? So, if that's the case, that while we can recognize that there are 4 activity causes that we go through in all of these different areas, we could add music and anything else that you're interested in there as well. So look for the 4, look for the dialectic within whatever art you're interested in. We've also recognized by looking at these 6 oxiding pictures that fundamentally that also applies to enlightenment. But as we've seen, there is 2 levels. There is this penultimate or mind or the idea of the good, and the ultimate or the good itself. Meaning, in principle, shouldn't there be 5 more oxiding pictures? Or, no, 6 more. A glimpse of the self, 4 kinds of activities, maybe a higher kind of dream analysis, which might relate to a higher kind of dream that we're after. Pathologos dreams, reminder dreams, prophetic dreams, insight dreams. What's the highest kind of dream? What's the mysterious 5th kind of dream that we haven't talked about? Pierre Grimes a few times in his life said, oh, by the way, there is another type of dream. And a couple of times people would go, what is it? Oh, I'll talk about it later. He means here, in his book, now. Later for him is a bit different. Since he had that experience in July of 1957 or something. There'll be time no longer for him. So it sounds like he reached that 8th oxiding picture himself early on in his life. And thankfully he shared it and helped a lot of people and wrote that Orange Book on midwifery and the pathologos. But did say, and is saying to us, up to you to do the book on dream analysis. And it seems like, well, he literally said, let's see it in the book, write a sequel. I'll search for sequel. Sequal. No. Buddha. I think you should call this next book The Dialogue Between Socrates and the Buddha. So that's what we've been doing. We've been creating the prep work for that. Meaning, have Jesus, hey, what did we just read? Dream analysis is benefited by people watching because people can recognize a kinship within the human struggle for mind to know itself and struggle with the problems that they have in the development of understanding. And you might also see something about your own problem. So have Socrates talking to Buddha, talking about this, and Jesus can be like, hey, if he's not on the hot seat, hearing that there are stages beyond his 3rd hypothesis glimpse, he might not be triggered in defending it. He can learn about it from the Buddha. And Socrates can introduce an understanding of the enlightenment stages that Buddha might not have had because he doesn't recognize the midwifery and dream analysis. So, hey, what you have as a model and experience, says Socrates to Buddha in your book that Pierre wants you to write about dream analysis, or about this first. You can maybe include dream analysis as well. Maybe a second sequel, Socrates and Jesus, a dream analysis talk in heaven. Yeah, that really seems to be what he's asking you as well. So I think he's wanting you to finish it as a serious set of 3, kind of like the Symposium Republic in Parmenides, or Timaeus Republic in Parmenides. There's a lot of people who think that some of these dialogues are a set of 3 as well. I don't know about that, but he's encouraging you to write a dialogue. Socrates can say, hey, by the way, I can add logos and understanding so you can recognize why you have 4 sets and how well you did in recognizing them. And what have we said? This whole book begins with the idea of language being important. If you don't have certain keywords, like the keyword the, you can't do philosophy. So one of the problems that Socrates recognized, language, in the Jewish language, of Jesus' Jewish tradition is, if you don't have a language, if you don't have a word the, you can't do philosophy. Russian, there are some, a few languages which don't have the word the, including Hebrew. You can say apple, but not the. Philosophy is going from a example of beauty to the beautiful, a mind to the mind, a self to the. So we need a perfect language expressing the purest and most complete philosophy. Then we would have secured a way to express one's most profound thoughts. And as a well-known inherent difficulty, says Jesus, or shortcoming of Hebrew, that will exclude it from doing this kind of philosophy. Without a the, they are out. Which might be why they haven't gotten into Hellenic philosophy yet. You need the word the. Page 181. And I think it's earlier in the text as well, but we got a quote. That's good enough. I think it starts like this as well. Let's look at the word the. Same section. Same section. All right, so there's a few pages where it talks about the significance of language itself and certain key words, what we would call the self-logos. The is one of them. True, good. Now, modern conservatives, clergy, and capitalists try and say there is no such word as the. It's all a matter of opinion and perspective. There is no such word as the word good. Good is a matter of perspective. It's good for the profits, so who cares? That's why people kind of say you're a Nazi a lot, because it's something objectively bad. And the role of conservatives is to muddy language. There's no such thing as bad, so you can't judge us doing bad shit to you. But we need the language. So in our dialogue with Buddha, maybe you can have Socrates maybe I'll bring this over here. You can have Buddha translating for Socrates his hypotheses map of truth into stages, because that's what Socrates wants. Buddha. The journey of the soul to experience the other side of heaven. There's our passageway. In the journey, there are stages along the way. I would have liked all of the stages of enlightenment from a glimpse to the final stages fully worked out. There we go. There's our glimpse in the third to its final stage in the eighth that we've been looking at. Just fix my OBS a little bit. There we go. I agree, says Jesus. I encountered some Zen masters here in heaven before our talk, and they spoke about the use of the ox herding pictures for that very thing. In each picture, there is a profound and beautiful statement of the state of mind of the seeker, what is encountered, how it functions, and each ends with a suggestion of the sequel, so that it as a whole can represent the spiritual life of man. Now, the idea of sequel is an interesting way of putting it, right? And that should stand out. Keywords that stand out are very helpful, either in recognizing our problems in midwifery or in our reading. I hadn't learned of their map of the spiritual journey. So what have we been doing? Getting a map of the spiritual journey of the soul. So that'll be the title of this episode, The Map of the Spiritual Journey of the Soul. I do think it is time that we met with them, which means it's time you guys write this dialogue to explore these questions we have entertained in our discussion. And you can even call it the dialogue between Socrates and the Buddha. So then we have a name for our sequel. Go ahead and do it. So, given this, we could have the Buddha giving Socrates those stages of enlightenment. But Socrates might help him by saying there are certain, hey, I just had a conversation with Jesus over there, and Jesus can give a wave. And we talked about the language of the significance of language. Let me help you by introducing certain key words. And maybe so that's the key words, the parts, but also the whole. Let me give you the structure of the dialectic. And Buddha can after helping Socrates with these description, Socrates can help Buddha recognize these stages as the 4 activity stages, or the dialectic stages, the dialectic being the activity in understanding in time, to better understand his tradition. Gain a better, more accurate language. But that means, hang on a second, the stages from a glimpse to its full return with understanding that allows for functioning. So the return gives us a few things. It gives us a union of understanding and the experience, imagination and understanding, as Socrates says, through dream analysis. Which means also it gives us an understanding of the inherent intelligibility or logos within that experience. So the logos within the ousia or within the nous. And it gives us a functioning. You can do something with it. What starts as experiences of bliss, they can puzzle you. Next time you return to it with that understanding in your back pocket, you can function. What's the function? To go through it as a passageway. Now that means, because there's another state beyond that passageway, the self, that again, Socrates will have to introduce the language of self, or oneself, or true self, or good self, and introduce the language of logos, and introduce the language of ousia, and introduce the key word of aspects. One of the great betrayals of philosophy is mistranslating the word eidos, E-I-D-O-S, as forms. Ever heard about Plato's forms? That's garbage. It's garbage. It's not forms. The word eidos means to behold. It refers to the aspects, ox, man, whip, and rope, that are together in a oneness or unity in that experience that you behold. The word eidos means behold. It's the aspects. An analogy I like to use is, within our physical world, there is the forces of gravity and electricity and and nuclear forces and friction forces. These are all the forces of physics. If you fall from a plane, as you're falling, you notice wind resistance. It's almost the only thing you notice because that's the aspect that you're noticing. But when you parachute comes out, you land nicely, and wow, that was really wind in my face. I really noticed we really live in a world full of wind resistance. Someone could say, hey, by the way, but there still had to be some force keeping together your parachute. Some nuclear forces, maybe. Oh, sure. And as you pulled it out, you must have noticed the friction of the ropes. Sure. So friction is an aspect of your experience. Nuclear forces are an aspect, and they all exist. They're different things, but you can't separate them. They all exist together. But in your experience, you noticed one more than the other. That's the eidos, not forms. Forms that we can understand why it's such a great betrayal when modern academia calls philosophy, which is actually a love of opinions. They mistranslate philodoxia, a love of opinions, as philosophy, because we recognize, hey, you are using third dimensional intelligence, sensation, perception, and concepts to make sense of fourth dimensional intelligence, intuitive intelligence, eidos. So no wonder there haven't been any decent philosophers for such a long time. No wonder the academic philosophers aren't making the world a better place. All they're engaged in is debate over opinions, and they never come to any fucking conclusions, and they never solve problems of fascism, tyranny, capitalism, religion, and conservatism. They're not doing shit. It's not their fault. One key, as we said, if your language doesn't have the word the, how can you be expected to get into philosophy? If you are mistranslating the word eidos, which is an aspect of intuitive intelligence, as a concept or form, you are blocked. Therefore, the importance of reading a Balboa translation of Plato or Homer, because he translates it properly. And now we can understand why there's a great betrayal against our intellectual and spiritual legacy and birthright, Hellenic philosophy. Some joker, some jabroni along the way,
Get the fuck out!
who needs to get the fuck out.
Oh man, that lady's certainly saying bad words.
Yeah, she did say the F word. Whoops.
Like literally, suck my dick, dude.
But I don't think she cares though. A language of the third dimensional intelligence applied to the fourth, that would block you from that participation. So we can add that language in, and we can have a better time individually, and maybe if people listen to us collectively. It's a win-win.
It's a win-win-win-win-win.
Exactly. So that would mean, therefore, that Socrates could then say, oh, thank you for those stages, Buddha. Let me ask you this. Using your own tradition, now that we've introduced these key ideas, the key terms, the structure of the dialectic, and the word eidos, what are you recognizing? You're recognizing the inherent eidos, the inherent logos, the inherent understanding within that whole of pure mind experience that we call the eidos. Ideas with a capital I if you want to use an English word. Let's keep eidos. We use the word ousia and logos, so let's keep eidos. The aspects. Now, what's the point? That ain't the end. You're not a Taoist, are you? You're a Buddhist. So don't take that as the end. what do we said from the very beginning? How do we go on this journey? We take the certainty of your beliefs that you take literally and become curious about them and take them analogically in relation to the self. So in Buddha understanding with the help of Socrates and the Logos in philosophy, these 5 stages, he can say, and therefore you can take all of them as an analogical reflection in the penultimate experience of enlightenment to understand what you can be looking for in the ultimate. Therefore, Buddha, shouldn't there be 6 more stages of a glimpse into the self? What did I do there? Whoops. A glimpse into the self, these 4 dialectic stages of activity leading to a return to the self that will allow for some union between the state of the self and the understanding of the self. So awakening maybe that 5th category of dreams we have to pay attention to. That will allow for its functioning. And we can ask the question, hey, if this, could there be 2 kinds of functioning? A functioning from that state of self to, in the ox herding pictures, you've put down the ox in the rope, but maybe you might want to spend some of your time on earth helping others. So your function downward, remember, this, as the midwife, we are reflecting on a state free from self, free from our pathologos as our goal, but we're also reflecting on the intuitive intelligence or ousia as the model of beauty and justice to compare it against people's problems, their image of their mummy or daddy as just or excellent or beautiful or whatever. Would there therefore be a different kind of self, a kind of knowing of self beyond knowing, and a kind of understanding of self beyond the dialectic that allows for its functioning ideally as a midwife? But could there be footprints even within that state for something that the self can use in its higher functioning? What the hell would that be? Now, on this channel, we have read up until the last section. We didn't quite finish that book because we need to do some work before we go back to the work. In Phaedo, Socrates' last day, he says, hey, by the way, in heaven, speaking of Socrates in heaven, there is the main experience. But for those who have done their work here on Earth, there is a surface. So just as you humans look at fish who think their water is the real world, their water is the air, there is a human on the surface of the lake who sees their water as lesser and experiences a different higher air. So too, in the realm of mind or intelligence, there are people who take the water as it, and there are those of us who have done their work. And he says, sacrifice a cock to Asclepius, the god of healing. What do we recognize the activity stages are about? Healing our image of self. Where I will wait for you with better men that you find here on earth who have completed their work, spirits and gods who are fellow adventurers and guides, which implies footprints of the ancients even in the ultimate state of enlightenment. And that's, as far as I'm aware, the only time I've heard it mentioned, but it is inferred here. The footprints of the ancients. So that's something we could wonder about. What would be the higher functioning of self in a level beyond even experience? What would that logos be? And is that part of our question? We return from the self to the self with an understanding of the self that we might not have had before, plus an art. And sure, you can use it to help others on their journey, but what about you? What's the significance of returning to the self with an understanding and an art and a purification in your back pocket? We've seen for Enlightenment 1, it's so that we can pass through, function in it and pass through it on a higher adventure. Would that also apply to our return to self? If so, we should have glimpse 1 plus 2, 3, 4, 5 activity stages and a return, mirroring these stages to do with the self. And every oxiding pictures finishes with an anticipation of its sequel, and that return back to self maybe can anticipate something beyond this incarnation as humans. Which would mean we'd have to ask, is there a 6th or 7th dimensional intelligence? Now, what's interesting about that is, while we have done amazing work, and congratulations to all of you,
It's not being crazy. It's called reaching a higher sense of being.
You are not crazy. You are in a higher state of being, right, Emma?
I'm cute. Like, it's cutie pie.
And like Emma, you are cute.
Funny, cool, and accents. It's just, this is, come on.
And you're funny and cool. But from that, we've from this reflection and understanding, putting philosophy and Eastern spirituality together, we've gained an understanding of the map that we can therefore apply to our anticipation of the next. Hold on. Screech sound effect. Screech. Or record skipping. We don't have 6 stages. We only have 2 left. That's our mission next time. Given everything we've put together about understanding the first 6 stages of enlightenment, can we look at which of those next 6 the 2 remaining ox-herding pictures are? So which of the next remaining 6 do the Buddhists have? Which are they lacking? And what would we have to do to fill in those gaps? And can we leave the door open for a higher state of functioning of self beyond this incarnation? Or maybe, even in this incarnation, what would be therefore the 6th dimensional intelligence maybe? Because the self one we're after is this glimpse through the development of understanding to return so that what was once a glimpse is now united with understanding as a kind of functioning or a level of intelligence. Just as we see and function through our concepts, that 8th ox-herding picture would be a seeing and functioning through that intuitive intelligence of divination. The last ox-herding picture should tell us about what that 5th dimensional intelligence is. And if we're cheeky, can we anticipate even a 6th? How far can we go? These are questions we have to ask because we're being asked to finish this greatest book ever written, some say. Top 3 at least. We need to put these together so we can have the material for writing our dialogue. Socrates and Buddha, with Jesus in the background listening, a dialogue in heaven. And our trequel, Socrates and Jesus, a dream talk in heaven. So, we're going to look at the last 2 stages of enlightenment within Buddhism, see which of those next 6 there happen to be, what would be the missing gaps. And, well, with an open and curious mind about even higher dimensional intelligence, we can see what comes up for us as we do our intended function. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you've been having fun. Thank you for the new follower today. We're at 140 followers. Oh my God, so many wise people running around right now. Oh my God, 140 of us wise people. Exciting. I hope you're excited. I hope your dreams are interesting tonight. Hey, I wonder if your dreams will be even more interesting now that you have become open through highest kind of reasoning and reflection, open to the idea that might be God talking to you, which is the highest possible idea of self. Something to wonder about. Bring that wonder back with you next time. Whoops. Bring that wonder back with you next time. And I will see you then in the next one.